They get to the country home, and
who's there? Who's at the country home?
Runs.
Yay!
Hey everybody, this is Kat.
And Rachel.
And you're listening to the Smut Peddlers podcast, a show for people who love books, especially when there's smut. We discuss our likes, our dislikes, and share all our favorite moments with you.
Today we're talking about Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, so grab your favorite beverage and get ready to burn with us. So we are starting part 2 today. We're going to be going through chapters 48 and 65. We've pretty much kept our ratings since last time. I am still rating this a 5. I will continue to rate this a 5. It will forever be a 5 because it's so good.
It's so good. I would say this is definitely a 5 for me. 1 pepper because we do get kissing, which is great.
Oh my god.
I would say so far this is my favorite book. So, very excited. I'm nervous
very excited
about
that
tandem read.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I haven't quite figured out how we're going to review the tandem read yet, because you're not going to be reading it as 2 separate books.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can definitely, maybe we'll get to a point where, like, with other book series we've read, people are very familiar with you get to a perspective of a character you don't like, and you're like, God damn it, I just got to get through these and get back to the characters I do like. So that could be a thing that happens, but I'm hoping that it does make Tower of Dawn more enjoyable to read. So I'll be really curious to see how you end up rating those. Or maybe it'll make... The only concern that I have is that I think I rated Empire of Storms a 5 as well. And there's definitely, like, a little bit of concern and nerves that Empire of Storms won't feel as good because you're forced to read Tower of Dawn during it. But, I don't know. You're smart. You'll figure it out. You'll be able to separate the two to be able to rate them separately, so.
Or I'll just rate the storyline. Each section that I read, I'll rate that.
I think I definitely have a different feeling with this series than I did with ACOTAR. You might have a different opinion on it because technically your favorite book in ACOTAR is the 3rd one. But I think that this series paces itself so well that each book is genuinely better than the last one.
Yeah.
Like, every single one, it just gets a little bit better, and then it gets a little bit better, and then it gets a little better, and then we ignore Tower of Dawn, and then it gets, like, absolutely crazy, insane, and so good at the end.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's paced really well.
ACOTAR definitely did, like, a...
yeah, it was, and they're all good books. Like, I genuinely enjoy all of them, but, like, you are really going on a roller coaster of, like, the first book is really good, but feels so different from the rest of the series after you've started reading it. The second book is, like, so emotional, and then the third book is, like, very war and exciting. Like, it feels a lot more like Throne of Glass than ACOTAR. Like, it feels like a Throne of Glass book that's been dropped into ACOTAR. And then Silver Flames is just... I don't know what that is. So that's its own thing.
It's so good. It's just...
It is so good, but it's very
different than the rest of
them. It's so different than, like, anything else that she's written before that it's hard to say, yeah, it 100% fits in the... It's like Tower of Dawn, but
it fits the characters that it's about.
That's true.
Which is great. So, for this section, we don't really have too many more characters. However, we do have one who we saw at some point in a previous book, but he was not in the first half of this book. And that is Lorcan. And he is, if you all remember, one of the 5 main cadre that were with Maeve. So he's sort of Rowan's buddy, but since Rowan is no longer under Maeve's rule, there's a little tension there. But Lorcan does show up in this half of the book. I would say that is my only character. I'm trying to think back. I think that's the only character that's not that we haven't really we didn't
Yeah.
really dive into him as a character in any of the other books. We just knew he existed because he showed up at Mistward. So, part 2 is referred to as Queen of Light, which I'm very excited about. We start off with the witches. So, where did we end?
That's a great question. I actually can't remember. She slices Arabin's head from his body. Just a small tidbit that we...
Oh, yeah.
It's because, like, what... So, this one separates everything a lot better. So, like, I did... It just feels like this was a separate book. Like, it absolutely could have been a separate book. Because it wraps up such a different storyline up until this point. Which is required for all of the setup and, like, all of the stuff with, like, getting her and Lysandra's relationship going. Like, Rowan had to have a reason to come back. Like, all of the, like, Aedion has to be there. Stuff's going on with Dorian. Chaol stuff is getting out of control. It's, like, building to this breaking point. But rather than Sarah being like, all right, next book sometime, she just shoved it all into one book, thank you. And then now we get to, like, where stuff starts getting resolved that we've talked about through the whole book. And Manon. Everything's happening with Manon.
Yeah, so for the witches, the last thing that happened is Aelin went down to the dungeons and pretty much witnessed what was happening to the Yellow Legs.
Yeah.
And gave that information back to Manon. And so now we're going to jump into what is Manon going to do? Because her 13, not thrilled with the fact that this is happening. And this one starts off because, of course, Astrid, again, quote unquote, stepped out of line. And so this book starts off with Manon giving Astrid 3 blows during breakfast for her outburst, which was her outburst about Harrington wanting a second coven. And she was like, you can't be doing this still. And of course, Manon, last she heard from her grandmother was that she needs to behave and listen to Parrington. So we don't want that either. But Parrington has pretty much given Manon an ultimatum. Either she picks a coven or he'll pick one of his own choosing, which we don't want either. We don't want any covens going to Parrington.
No.
Fuck that guy.
So yeah, Astrid gets her punishment for speaking against Manon. She's like still trying to wrap her mind around it because she can't quite believe that her grandmother is like letting them do this to the coven. And just is in denial.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
She believes her grandmother has a plan.
Yeah.
And I think she didn't. Yeah, she really doesn't know what that plan is. She just is like, well, she has to have a reason for this, but maybe it's not a good enough reason. The 13 are also then sent on a mission. And this is kind of their first mission that they're told that they have to go and do. And part of that is that they're bringing Parrington, Caltaine, and a group of soldiers, or Parrington's men. They're flying them to this village. And while they're flying over the village, kind of circling it, Caltaine unleashes her shadow fire on this village. And it's the first time Manon is really seeing this outside of it being a form of torture for one person, which is also terrifying. I think at that point, Manon is also very much like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, this is horrid. Like, these aren't, like, they say that they're rebels, but they're really not. And she, I think at this point, she's still in this, like, I don't know if I want to be helping these people. It's like she's getting a conscious, like, in between,
Yeah.
like, yelling at her 13 for disobeying, but then also watching these things happen. And internally, she's like, oh, fuck.
Because she's got Astron's, like, words, like, in her head. Because she had yelled at her, you let them do this.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, every time she goes to do something now, she just hears that in her head. Like, she thinks about the witches, and she hears her voice. She thinks about the fact that the only reason that this village is being attacked is because she's the one that scouted the village for Parrington, like, under his request.
Mm-hmm.
She let them do this. And then now this whole village is dying, and Kaltine is, like, torturing them with the shadow fire. And she's on the same, like, she's carrying Kaltine, basically. So, like, the entire time, Kaltine, like, Manon could just kill her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she mentions she thinks about it, that there's too many eyes on her, but still she has that thing in the back of her mind. It's like, you're letting them do this because you could just kill Kaltine and it would be over.
Yeah.
And then she gets ordered, like, Kaltane passes out from using too much power, and Parrington orders them to go down on the ground to kill them, to kill everyone that's there, so that there are no survivors.
Remains, yeah.
Yeah.
She even has
Great
this, like, at the end of that, she even kind of her inner dialogue is like, it was a blessing to the people that are dying that they didn't have to go through the shadow fire, and that it was the 13 that killed the remainder of them.
Some of them were begging for death.
Yeah. So, yeah, she really is this, like, on this edge, especially because when they're flying in, Abraxos is, like, kind of doesn't want to fly into the village, and he's like
flies slow.
Yeah, he, like, slows down, and she has to, like, kick him and be like, come on, like, faster, let's go. And he kind of, like, snarls at her but goes, because I think he knows that she has to right now. If she didn't do it right now, like, there is a good chance that the 13 wasn't gonna be alive. Granted, they probably could have taken all of those, whoever was there, very easily, but
well, I feel like only maybe if Kaltane's dead.
Yeah.
Because if Kaltane just, like, can look at people and, like, do the shadow fire. I guess she was passed out, so at that point she's passed out, so, like, go for it. I don't know. It has to just be that they have some sort of assumption of power.
Yeah.
Like, that he has some sort of assumption of power, but they never smell, like, I don't know if they really mention that he specifically smells wrong, but they know that, like, they're bad and they have to have some kind of power. Because I do think constantly about the fact that the witches are like, girl, you got the wyverns. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, just kill them all.
Yeah, you have so many wyverns
and
that are now
it's just her
only being manipulated by witches.
Yeah, it's just the matron or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's the matron.
That is, like, keeping her back. But I don't fucking understand. I don't know. I don't understand what the matron's like. It's the magic, I guess, because they don't have their magic. So she's hoping that, like, since they don't have magic, that the wyverns, they only have enough wyverns, and he's the one making the wyverns. So she's just hoping that she'll be able to get more and more power out of him.
Yeah, I don't really... It doesn't make sense based off of, like, the backstory of the witches that you get, why they just kind of, like, rolled over and were like, yeah, sure, we'll work for you. When, like, even this whole time...
Yeah.
It definitely was, like, all of this is the matron. Like, she is the one pulling the strings, because even the whole time, Manon's like, no, I don't work for you. And, like, really, like, witches don't listen to humans. Like, and she keeps constantly, like, even when she's not on the, like, oh, what we're doing is incorrect and wrong, she's on the other side of, like, we don't listen to humans. Like, witches don't listen to humans. Why are we listening to you? But then she does, because the matron's like, you're gonna listen to them. She's like, well,
you are going to do exactly what I tell you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. So they do this. They go on their first mission. and they kill an entire village. And one big factor of that is the shadow fire. So it's the second time Manon seeing this shadow fire, and she's realizing that, like, holy shit, this is terrifying because these people are like burning from the inside.
Yeah.
And then we move back to Rifthold. And so what has recently happened in Rifthold is that Erebin is dead. And
Yay!
we found that out at the end of part 1. Erebin died, and we learned that Aelin manipulated all of his will so that she gets all the money.
She could take all of his money!
Yeah. So part of that process is she has to go and sign paperwork at the bank so that all this money from Erebin can be transferred to her accounts for her people, aka so that they can continue feeding themselves and sheltering themselves and, you know,
possibly buy an army and fund a war.
Yeah.
Yay!
We know that's gonna happen.
She's pretty sure.
Yeah. She's fairly certain.
She has a nice conversation with Aedion. They are still trying to like figure out how to communicate well and like tell each other everything that happened while they were apart.
Mm-hmm.
And they apologize to each other like over and over again throughout the whole book, basically. And they constantly ask each other, "What are you apologizing to me for?" I'm like, you guys just stop apologizing, because you guys obviously can't accept apologies from each other. I love this conversation a lot, and I think that some of the points in it that the both of them make are make like a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
That they both wish that they could have been together, but then Aelin does make a really good point that, like, because Aedion had said, "I wish that like Erebin had found both of us," and she's like, it would not have played out the way that it did if he found both of us, because you would never have let him treat me the way that Erebin treat me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would have taken both of us and run. And I love that point so much, because it's such a good callback to like Aedion's upbringing and his honor and like how much he wants to protect her. And that also, it just kind of feels more like she was put on the right path, even though it wasn't the easy path.
Yeah.
And every time she talks about it, she like doesn't necessarily talk about it with like regret.
Yeah, I mean, even at the very end, she was like, at the end of part 1, she was still toying with this, like, the reason she let Lysandra kill Erebin wasn't just because she also had a vengeance to get back and a vendetta against him.
Yeah.
It was like she also was kind of sad because this man that she now hates, there was he did save her life. Like, she still felt like she owed him something, because if not, she would have died. Like, if he didn't show up, maybe she wouldn't have died necessarily, but that's what she thinks. She was 8 and found in a river, pretty much freezing to death. So
yeah,
with magic wiped, she wouldn't have had her like wildfire to keep her alive in that kind of environment. Or she would have been found by someone else, or she could have been found by the king. Like, or anyone else find her and then gave her away to the king. Like, at least Erebin didn't give her to the king, which ultimately was what I think any other person would have done in that scenario.
Yeah.
So
probably for many.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, just not to be killed by the king.
He also asks her not to like keep the burden so much on herself. Of like, she's building her court now. She has more people. Mm-hmm. She doesn't just have to be her.
Yeah.
And like put it all on her.
She's not alone anymore.
And her response is so sarcastic. Why would I risk your life?
Yeah.
Like, you are the queen, okay? You can't just run around thinking that your life is expendable or less important than other people's. I understand that we are important to you, but also you are important to, like, a lot more people than us collectively, okay? I love it, but it's, like, my thing about when people write rulers in books, it's the trait you want them to have, but also gets so annoying after a while, because I'm like, please, God, please stop risking your life. You have to logically know that this isn't, like, it would be really bad if you died, right? Like, we get that?
Yeah, we understand.
We'd all be fucked.
But literally every fight, she's like, this is the end.
I'm gonna
die
myself.
now. It's like,
I will die happy. I'm like, everyone's screwed if you die. Please. Don't do this.
Not ideal. Yeah, he pretty much says, I'm here now, I'm healed, let me share this burden with you. But this is a very great setup for this book, this conversation, because Aedion asks, so what exactly are we going to do now? And she, of course, says, I'm going to free magic. I'm going to take down the king and kill Dorian. The order of the last two items on that list could be flipped depending on how it all goes.
I like it because it does, like, that line is purposefully meant to be like, all right, here are the check marks that we're going to attempt to get through between now and the end of the book. Let's see what happens.
Good luck.
It's a stressful list.
He also then counters her, which I also thought was funny because it's all just their relationship. His heart stopped. What? Was something about that not clear? All of it. Every damn part of it. He had no doubt she would do it either. Even the part about killing her friend. If Aedion objected, she'd only lie and cheat and trick him. At this point, Aedion is like, oh God, she's going to put herself in danger. But also, if I tell her no, she's just going to leave me out of it. And still put herself in danger.
He's
figured it out
by Chaol. he's been
figured
told
it
once.
out now.
She's not going to sit on the sidelines and let everyone else do everything for her.
Yeah.
Now he gonna learn.
Mm-hmm.
He gonna learn fast.
So after their kind of heart to heart, they go back to the apartment where Rowan is, and he lets Aelin know that he hunted down Lorcan and that he is still alive after his battle with the Word Hounds. He also is kind of at this, like, he wants to protect her, but also knows she needs to, like, do this. But he wishes he had his Fae powers. He also wishes that she didn't, because he's stressed and scared and feeling things that he doesn't want her to know about.
He's conflicted.
Yeah.
He's doing the very typical Fae male thing where it's like, I can't be with her. I have to protect her by keeping my distance. Like, you guys are so stupid. That lasts like 200, 300 pages max, and then we're out, okay? Like,
yep.
I do love this scene a lot because this is one of the first, like, quiet moments that they have after Arabin, and after their, like, his reaction where he's like, don't touch me. And he's obviously being an idiot about it and in his head about it. He does, like, reveal a little bit more about why he had that reaction, and it's because of just where she touched him, and apparently it's, like, over a tattoo that he had, like, for Lyria, who was, like, his mate. So, like, I get it, but just any other words but the words you said would have been fine. Like, she would get that.
So much better.
So anything other than what you did would have been a better course of action. But I do love that she has this whole thing, and she still comes to bed in, like, one of her flimsy, like, nightgowns. And he's just like, well, I fucked up, but she doesn't care enough to be like, well, I'm gonna stop torturing you by, hanging out in what is basically like a lingerie teddy in bed.
Pretty much.
And I love that about her so much. It's like, you know what? Fuck you. I know you want me, but whatever.
She's also tired because she's been going and doing things. She always goes out and does things, and she is always
Doesn't
tired.
tell anyone about them.
Yeah. So, of course, she climbs into bed in her nightgown, and he tries to apologize for the roof situation and tries to explain to her that it wasn't necessarily you touching me, it was more of the tattoo. And she passes out. She's like, I don't want to hear it. She's
Before
like, whatever,
like,
it's fine.
anything.
And then falls asleep, which is great. Yeah. Part of their plan now, too, is so we know that they want to get rid of this tower, but we're not really sure how that's going to happen. So part of it is, I thought was a great little scene, was Aelin and Lysandra dress up as like little old biddies, and they go down to the bakery and act like little rich like old ladies trying to get information because they want, I don't know, like drugs or something. Pretty much they're trying to get like drug information to figure out where this guy went after the shadow market disappeared, because they like need their fix. Which I thought was fantastic. She's like,
the
pie,
vendor is like
just
supposed
need
to
pie.
sell. He's like supposed to sell something else, but the fact that they dress up and go undercover as like the old rich ladies, and Lysandra's like complaining about the wig, and they're like,
it's so itchy.
We just need to talk to this guy because he's got the pie, okay? And we need to talk to the specific person about pie. And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about pie. And they're like, yes, you do. I know that you know what I'm talking about. It's not really about the pie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're so good.
They like get the information that they want. Aelin is like, your father should fire that person. Opium addicts are piss poor employees.
She makes a damn good pie.
She makes good bread. God damn it.
She makes really good baked goods, though.
This is also when Lysandra learns about what ghost leopards are. Which are, ghost leopards are so cool. They're like ginormous cats, and they like prowl this area of like the mountains, and apparently they'll like attack and eat people, and like the fae in that area are scared of them. They're so powerful and like crazy awesome predators. They're white and gray, and you can barely make them out against the snow and rock. You can't really tell they're on you until you're staring right into their pale green eyes. His smile faltered as Lysandra fixed her green eyes on him and cocked her head. Despite herself, Aelin left. So, like, Aedion is telling her about the ghost leopards and describing them to her. She's like, tell me more. What do they look like?
I would like this in my brain.
I need to save this info for later. Yeah, as soon as the line of Lysandra fixed her green eyes on him, I was like, she's gonna be a snow leopard. She's gonna figure it out.
She's gonna figure out how to be a leopard.
Yeah.
She makes good bread. I still think that's so funny.
She makes good bread is genuinely so funny.
Aelin patted Lysandra on the shoulder. Sounds like your kind of creature. She's like, tee-hee, yes.
Yes, please.
So they get the information they need, which is that this drug lord has moved down into the catacombs underneath the shadow market, or like the sewers, which have catacombs under them.
Yeah,
how
I
the
think
breakdown is.
They go through the sewers, and then there's catacombs under the sewers or something like that.
Yeah, so pretty much
they talk about there being like another level below that Aelin has not like been to, and
yeah.
So
they say that Nellie thinks that this drug lord is there, and so that's where they can find him. That he's hunkered down. Yeah. Yeah. So their next stop,
they go down to
is to go there, and of course they take Chaol. They take Nezrin. Do they take Nezrin? I don't think they do.
I don't know.
They take Chaol at least.
No,
So
I don't think they take Nezrin because she doesn't go with them
she finds them
originally
in the shadow market.
because she doesn't want to arouse suspicion going to her own family's bakery and asking questions.
Yes. So Aelin, Rowan, Aedion, and Chaol all go to these sewers. And of course they don't really explain anything, so Chaol's like, what are we doing here? And she's like, don't worry about it. I'll show you in a minute. And they crawl into the sewers, and they go into the sewer entrance that's just under. It's in the shadow market, but it's also under like the like opium dealer's like little hut, wherever his little station was. There's like a floorboard that moves or something, and that's how you get into it. So they go down into the sewer, and then they find the next like little hutch thing, and they go in, and of course Aelin just climbs in, and they're like, what if he's down there? And she's like, oh no, he's dead. He may have been captured by the king already and put to death, so it's okay. Like, no one's down here. So they go in, and they find hellfire, which is not opium, but it is an explosive. And, of course, they are all pretty much, I would say collectively, minus Aelin, is like, no, this is a bad idea because a very small amount of hellfire can kill many people. And of course, Rowan is like, I've seen a small amount of this do astronomical damage. And she's like, well, we need to blow up a giant tower made of stone. So
yeah, she's like, perfect. It works then.
Sounds great. And she also pulls the finders keepers. It's mine now. No one else can have it.
Yeah.
So.
In typical Aelin fashion, she had spent a ton of time not talking to anyone about this, researching and going to visit this man and trying to get him to tell her about the hellfire, and it never happens. And then she's like, oh yeah, okay, let's go down. It's like, oh no, don't worry guys, he's not here. He got picked up by the guard. And also he was selling hellfire. Also, I've been figuring this out for weeks, and everyone's just like, what the fuck? Can you stop? How many plots within plots?
Something?
I do have like a level of curiosity about her though, because I want to know like how much does she not how many other threads? Like how far do the threads go that don't pan out that she has going at like any given time for the amount of things that she has to work out for her actually work?
Yeah. So they're underground, they find the opium.
Right.
And it is in a catacombs of sort. And it doesn't look like any of the catacombs that they have seen before. So at this point, we're very familiar with catacombs. In book 1 and 2, they hang out a lot in the catacombs for Gavin and Elaine.
Yeah, they are Elena.
Yeah. So they hang out, but they venture into those catacombs very often. It's how she kind of went around. Her and Nehemia went down there. These are very different. They notice that the walls are covered in bones and skulls, and they are real bones and skulls, not just like for aesthetic purposes. It looks more like a temple than it does a catacomb so much. There is an altar. On these bones, they have like messages written on them, sort of, and it's like, when someone dies, pretty much they come to the conclusion that when someone dies, they confess something on to that person's bones of something that they've done. And then when they die, someone else does the same. And so the
temple is supposed to be like for the god of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't a benevolent god. Like, obviously, because his temple is in a catacomb with a bunch of bones in it. And they like search around. They realize that the Sword of Truth is kind of linked to this temple, since it's the temple of possibly like the god of truth. And they start to like search for word marks and like anything that could link the sword to the place or link the place to Gavin.
Yeah, the Sword of Truth is Damaris as well.
Damaris was Gavin's sword,
Mhm.
which was called the Sword of Truth. And then you also have the Eye of Elena, which is the amulet that's holding the word stone. So they have a lot of items that will react to this place if it is what they think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of search around, and Aedion thinks he found it. And like right when he finds it, Aelin and Rowan like find it's a wall behind an altar, and the wall itself has word marks covered like all over it. And the wall is like in panels, and they all sit there pretty much so that she has time to decipher the word marks so they can figure out what's on the wall. And they find out that it is the story of, there's like a story about Elena and Gavin on the wall. And this is meant to be their like basically thing that Kat was talking about, where like this is what's etched into the stones. That's like their last confessional kind of thing. So she deciphers it, and it basically reveals that they didn't actually kill what was the big bad of their time. So like they talk about having killed this big evil, and the evil's like name was Erewhon, and it's like common lore. They killed him, like it was over, they saved everyone. And their confessional is, we didn't actually kill him. We just put him to sleep, and we trapped him in this like unending sleep in a mountain in like the Black Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, that's fine. We don't have any Black Mountains here. And Aelin's like, hey, Rowan, what's like the old language word for Black Mountains? And he's like,
Morath?
Morath? Ah!
Okay.
So basically the worst case scenario that could have happened, which is that the huge big evil from Elena and Gavin's time isn't actually dead. He's fucking sleeping, and he's sleeping in Morath, where Parrington and the king have decided, let's set up base for no coincidence reason whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. They definitely don't know this fact.
Also, let's connect some word keys, because maybe we can use them to fucking awaken a person he's dead though, so that's fine.
It's okay, because he's dead, right? It's fine. Nothing bad can happen. Yeah, so, like, we didn't necessarily get the idea that Erewhon is dead from the other books, but the catacombs in which Elena and Gavin are buried, or where they found Damaris and the Eye, it all is, like, these two rulers who fought till the end and, like, won.
Because they were fighting the 3 Volg kings.
Yeah.
And Erewhon is a Volg king that was trapped here.
Mm-hmm.
And that king is the one that they said they killed, because it was the one that was trapped here. The other ones were trapped in, like, the other, like, realms, basically. So the one that in the lore that everyone knows, that's common knowledge, the one king that was trapped here, they killed him.
Yes.
And what we learn is, no, he's not actually dead. They didn't kill him. They couldn't kill him. They just put him to sleep.
Yeah. They locked him and buried him in a mountain. To just be there under
hopefully
this mountain
never to be disturbed.
Yes. No one would ever go... Why would anyone go into a mountain or go under a mountain? So, Erewhon's a potential problem now.
But it's okay, because they also did find the Hellfire down there. So that's
They did. They definitely
we've got
found Hellfire.
a new big bad, but we now have big explosive devices.
Yeah, so we can kill the tower and bring back magic. It's gonna be fantastic.
So we've got the Hellfire will be great because that's definitely going to be a really good way for them to destroy the tower. But now they've kind of realized that whatever they've been doing is not just like a war. Like, they're not just bringing the Vogue princes back so that they can have an army to then, like, take over everything. They're trying to bring back the Vogue king, which is significantly worse.
Uh-huh.
And he's wildly more powerful, so, like, they're now against the clock even more to, like, complete all of this stuff because they'd rather him not be alive.
Yep. They would rather he be dead and definitely don't want the King of Otterland and Parrington to raise him from the dead to bring him back.
Yes, that'd be bad.
Really great. So, now that we know that, let's go hang out in Morath with Manon.
Because why would we want more information about what we learned? Let's go talk about other things, I guess.
Let's go learn other things now.
Yeah. So after Manon's refusal, of like Parrington and his requests and stuff, she gets kind of called by her 13. Like, they have a
meeting.
They basically have a group meeting without her. And they have a group meeting without her, and then, like, when she calls all of them to come to meet about, like, what next coven they're gonna select, she asks them who they think she should select as the coven. And I love that one of their responses is literally like, we're not gonna pick them for you so that it's not on you. I remember reading that and being like, oh, they know her so well. She's, like, trying to get out of having to make the decisions herself so that she doesn't have to feel like she's the one that did this.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that writing so much. And they basically reveal that, like, they all met to try to bring the information that they have for her to her in a specific way that's going to get her to understand. And she's fucking pissed.
Yeah, she takes it as, like, an
mutiny!
act against her. Yeah. As opposed to them trying to, like, flush out what they need to say to her.
Right.
As this meeting's happening, though, shit kind of hits the fan. And I think, honestly, this is, like, a wake-up call for her.
It is. Because her and Astrid are, like, at each other's throats fighting. Like, Manon is basically ready to kill Astrid for the amount of, like, just backtalk and, like, how much she pushes her. And she's just like, my grandmother will be ecstatic that I finally killed you and gotten rid of this problem. Because I'm trying to do what I can to keep all of us alive. And the rest of the 13 are like, we'd rather die than do what the fuck we're doing right now. But thankfully, she doesn't kill Astrid because they get fucking attacked instead.
Yeah. It is described as a golden man shows up, and then there is darkness. And we learn that this golden man is Roland, who we have not seen since, I don't know, book 2.
Kind of Midnight?
Walks out. And he has
when he gets sent away with a collar on him.
Yeah. And Roland is Dorian's cousin.
Yeah. He was his cousin that came to stay in that book.
Yeah.
And kind of kept tabs on him for his dad.
Well, that's the kind of idea that you get because he has a ring on.
Yeah.
But
because he's being controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not because Roland's that shitty of a person.
Yeah. There were parts where he was being controlled, but maybe there wasn't necessarily, like, a prince in him or somebody in him. At this point, he very much has some Vogue demon inside of him.
Yeah.
And she, of course, tackles him, and the witches win this fight. But in the chaos, there is screaming that happens, and this darkness affects about half of the 13. The first person that she notices is Ghislaine starts screaming, and she pretty much notes that she has never heard any of them scream with fear and pain.
Yeah.
Because they're the 13, they're like invincible.
They're too powerful.
Yeah.
And just instantly, this man walks in the room and they're screaming.
Darkness happens. Yeah. So we don't know what the darkness is. It could be similar to the Vogue when they attacked Aelin, where they just kind of go into their mind and like replay dark like visions. It could be similar to Kaltain, where it's like a shadow fire type thing that takes over and is like hurting them from the inside. We don't actually know. They're pretty much drained by the end of it. So like my thought was that it was similar to just the Vogue, pretty much like
I think it's the same
playing
thing
with
that
their thoughts.
Selena gets done to her, where they scream in fear because they're being shown the things that would cause them the most fear, the same way that she did.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how they're draining that torture from them, because they constantly are talking, especially when we get Dorian scenes, like they constantly talk about Dorian is seeing all of this stuff where he's watching them go through this mental torture, and then they are feeding off of their fear and stress and pain like it's food.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what they're doing here. And I think that's why it's the call out specifically is to like that they're screaming in fear and pain, because the Vogue would know the best way to show in their minds what would actually cause them the most fear and pain and make them experience it in their heads.
This one, you realize that like during this interaction, you realize Rowan is kind of like side by side with the demon inside of him, because there are points where he's like, my name is Roland, please kill me. And then it's like the demon is hissing and saying, get away, because Manon is at his throat. Yeah. And Manon is apparently scarier than everyone else to these demons.
Dude, the stuff with Manon is insane. There is some weird thing about Manon that scares the shit out of these demons.
Yeah, those who had been affected, their eyes were ordinary colors, brown and blue and green, but the ones who hadn't, black eyes flecked with gold. And when he'd looked at Manon's eyes, gold eyes had always been prized among black beaks, and she'd never wondered why. So, Manon kills him. All the ones
also,
that
the way
were
that
affected.
He kills him, the way that she kills him, like, honestly makes me feel so bad for Rowan. Or for Roland.
Oh, yeah.
It's brutal. She basically, like, she doesn't decapitate him with a sword or anything like that. She, like, claws his neck apart.
Yeah. She, like, has him by the throat and then just her claws go through. Yeah.
Yucky. But, again, this is, like, more fear of no one can figure out how to get anyone that has a commander or a prince in them safely detached from their host.
Yeah, so he's beheaded, but
everyone's just dying.
Cleanly. He's definitely not beheaded in a clean manner in this case.
Yeah. She tells them to get rid of the body and then, like, immediately goes on the hunt for Kaltain to try to get more information, because she's the only one that, you know, isn't a man and a piece of shit.
And she's the only one that has talked to her and given her any information, because when she was torturing the 1-foot soldier, she spoke and spoke to Manon.
Yeah.
So Manon finds Kaltain and immediately is like, what the fuck is going on? Kaltain, she pretty much asks her, like, where is your shadow fire coming from? Kaltain's like, it's mine. She's like, okay, the fuck does that mean? It's yours. She's like, well, it was mine to begin with. Like, it was my power, whatever power I had prior to magic leaving. And then now it's been manipulated. So she kind of like gives her this idea that like it's mine, but it's also slightly manipulated, which is a nice foreshadowing for later. Um, she asks if it's your power, if it's Vogue power, and she's like, it was mine to start, and then it melded with another source.
Yeah.
Kaltain, like, she asks about the collar. Kaltain's like, I can't take it off. It's just there. Manon's obviously, like, not thrilled with her one-word answers, and then Kaltain grabs her arm and starts using the shadow fire slightly on her. And Manon panics because she's like, I feel pain. I feel burning, but, like, I'm fine on the outside. So Kaltain is, like, putting power in her shadow fire into her on the inside, which is terrifying. Manon then threatens her and says, I'm gonna kill you. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna die. And then Kaltain just like turns around and walks away and is like,
Yeah.
see ya. Just
She also says during this, like, she asks like if they want to put collars on all of us. And she's like, they don't want you. They want Vogue kings.
Yeah, they want kings.
And it's like a connection to, like, it connects back to like, why are the covens being used to like have Vogue babies? Like, they don't want the witches, the women. No, they want little Vogue boy kings.
Yeah, they want to use the Vogue that exists now. Use the witches as the birthing, which is the closest thing to Vogue you can get because they're a descendant of it.
Yeah.
And then have little boys. So, we've finished up at Morath. We're going back to Rifthold. And it is... I just wrote, the team climbs out of the sewers because saying all of their names over and over again is getting tiring. But the crew that went down into the sewers, into the catacombs, they are now leaving the sewers. And this is where we run into Nezrin again. And she has a message from Ren. And that message is that the king is building an army for Morath. And this kind of ties in very well to us finding the catacombs and finding out that Erewhon is not actually dead. So, you know, fantastic. They also toy with the idea that Aniel is next to the Farron Gap. And so kind of Chaol has this inner thought of maybe that's why his dad wanted him to go back to Aniel, either as a barricade between Rifthold and Morath, or to help, because it's close to Morath, to help the king. So he kind of doesn't know if his dad truly is a piece of shit or not.
He doesn't have a black ring, so
that was the big thing, was
if
that
he's
like
being a piece of shit, it's of his own.
Yeah, it's of his own choosing, but he still hasn't put on a black ring, so he's not being controlled by the king.
Yeah.
Which even Parrington
I think
has
he's
a
smart
ring.
enough
like,
that he knows
all of
what's
these
going
people
on.
Have rings. Yeah.
Or he knows that something's funky about the rings, which is why he hasn't gotten one yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still surprised that he managed to get out of his visit without being given one.
Yes.
But now that he did get out of it, I think that it's also one of the reasons why he stayed away.
Yes.
Because it's easier to stay away and not be forced into getting a ring than it is to
I still think
be around.
Chaol's dad is a piece of shit, but I also have this hope that maybe he was trying to get Chaol back to protect him in some way and to protect their kingdom. Because if Chaol's there, it's more than just him against the King of Otterland. And he might have an vengeance towards the King of Otterland too, just like secretly, and he wants Chaol to not be on his enemy's side too. Like, we don't know really anything about Chaol's dad.
The big thing that he would complain about with the other son was that he's not strong enough. And I think that also lends to like that theory of he wants Chaol to come home because he thinks that he's going to need someone that's going to be strong enough to fight whatever fight's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't think his brother would be able to do it. which I think is actually fair. The way that he goes about it is fucked and shitty,
Yes.
but I get it if that's what he's going for.
Yeah. I think him as a, like, his inner character is not a great person, but he might still care about his kingdom and his son.
He's almost like what you hoped Arobynn actually was.
Yes.
But he's like Arobyn's worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Arobynn actually is terrible.
He's shitty, but he also was like creepy and weird and was super selfish.
Mm-hmm.
His dad, I think at least, is like selfish, but in a way where he's still attempting to serve his, like, the actual community that he's responsible for. Because he does think that Chaol is the best chance for Aniel to survive.
Yeah.
And his probably comes from it as a point of pride as well, but it's still for the betterment of the people that serve him.
Yeah. And he knows that his son isn't going to just follow him because they've had kind of just like head-to-head matches for his whole life, so he has to try to manipulate him to come home. Which isn't the best course of actions, but because of their relationship, like, Chaol's not gonna just leave.
Yeah.
So of course he has to, like, really get Chaol to, like, make it seem like it's his own idea. Yeah. Like sending Celaena to Wendland. And then saying, like, if you back me on doing this, like, I'll go back with you to Aniel. Still doesn't go back
all
to
of our
Aniel, but
audio listeners, I rolled my eyes so goddamn hard when she said sent Celaena to Aniel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, Nesryn comes back with a lot of information. She comes back with the information that connects the two stories together, at least for Aelin's group now learns a lot more about what's been happening in the Farian Gap that we all know about. Yes. So they get informed about the witches that are in the mountain, the wyverns that are in the mountain, and that they've been training. The fact that, like, they've been getting pockets of soldiers ready and hiding them in parts of the mountain.
Thousands of Volg soldiers at this point.
So now we have, like, they're realizing how bad it is and how much the king has been doing while they've just been trying to, like, deal with just Riftholt's situation. The Morath saturation has gotten out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So they start talking about, like, all of the possibilities that they have, that, like, possibly this is how Aniel gets brought up, that they talk about maybe Melisande can help, maybe Aniel could be an ally. They've got Eelway to think about, but if Eelway can't get to them, like, what are some of the other...
Because Eelway is technically behind Morath. It's like Eelway, Morath, Aniel, Rifthold.
Yeah. So they're talking through all of these. They're still thinking about Dorian, because Dorian would obviously be the best option to have on the throne.
This is where Chaol reminds them that, like, because they're like, do we think it... Pretty much they ask, like, will Aniel ally with us? And he pretty much says, well, my father doesn't wear a black ring, but I doubt you'd find him a pleasant ally.
Yeah.
So he's still in this, like, well, he's not controlled by the king. But I also don't think he'll be like, yeah, let's fight with Terrace.
He'll want something out of it.
Yeah.
If he helps.
Mm-hmm. At all, that is. So
Aelin
sends,
thanks her.
Yeah, Aelin sends Nesryn off and then says, like, we'll meet back at, like, a tavern that's down the street, and then thanks her for doing her work. And the one thing that I loved about this was Nesryn's eyes flicked as she said, long live the queen.
So sick. Yes, good. We have begun.
Pretty much Aelin thanks her for everything that she's risking, because she has a family, She
also mentions that like a lot of spies were lost, like trying to get this information out and to them. Like a lot of people lost their lives. And
Aelin is very much in her head after this information, because we know her. She does not like when people die, especially to give her information or to help her in any way. Like, as we've talked about even in the beginning of this section, she wants to do everything on her own because she doesn't want other people to get hurt. And so the fact that more people lost their lives to give her this information, like there's this whole army that is forming in Morath too. She, of course, is panicking. She's like, how am I supposed to do it all? And of course, Rowan talks her down because he's Rowan and we love him, which is great. But then
Indeed.
Lorcan shows up, which is less great.
Oh, damn it, Lorcan. Shows up and like holds a knife to her throat.
Mm-hmm.
Very bad, very dangerous. Even she is nervous.
Yes.
You don't get the sense that she's like, I'm gonna trick him into thinking that I'm not in as much danger as I am. There's like genuine fear on both of their faces.
She knows that he is stronger and faster than she is. And he is in his Fae form. He doesn't have magic, but he's still a Fae. So, like, he's
very strong, like Rowan.
Yeah. She wouldn't want to go...
very capable fighter.
Wouldn't want to go head-to-head with Rowan either. So.
Yeah. He has lots of questions. Lots and lots of questions.
Yes.
But also, we do get some answers out of him, which is great. So he basically, I think it's funny that he basically chastises them for, like, being stupid and being like, you think Maeve is this sentimental bitch and she wanted that ring that you had because she, like, loved someone? You guys are idiots. What do you mean? No, she wanted that ring because it had special properties that made it, like, really important to her and an amazing tool. Also, I stole it. You're welcome. So
I'll give it to you, but you have to give me all the word keys.
But you have to give me what I want. So he basically, like, tells them about the ring. Apparently the ring that Aelin had and then just gave away made it so that you could not be taken over by the Volk.
Yeah, so pretty much if...
Which is huge.
You are wearing this ring, one of the, like, necklace, like, choker necklace things.
Torques?
Couldn't go on... Yeah, torques. Whatever. I still refer to them as a choker
They're
necklace.
chokers.
Yeah. That can't actually, like, go on you and then take over your body, and then neither could the black rings.
Yeah.
And
that would be... Sorry, I just realized that would be a really funny Halloween costume. Just get big, thick black chokers and just wear them while we do the podcast.
Mm-hmm. We'd have to have no emotion, though.
We're not doing that. Yeah, it would be a really boring podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, we learn about this ring and what it does, and we learn pretty much like, okay, Lorcan, what do you want to give us that? And he's like, I want your word keys. And they are like, well, we're not going to just give you word keys because you're going to give them to Maeve. And he goes, I'm not going to give them to Maeve. I'm going to destroy them. And they're like, but you still work for her. He's like, I still make decisions to protect my queen, which is his, like, roundabout way of saying, like, I'm going to destroy these so she can't get them. But
he's very clever. Like,
yes.
He's very clever in the ways of being able to manipulate the bond that they have because it's, like, very specifically worded.
Mm-hmm.
And unless he's directly ordered to do something, he is bound to act in the best interest of his queen. And he fully believes that the best interest of his queen is for these to be destroyed.
Yes.
So he's able to just go and, like, do this. And, like, would actually be able to destroy the keys. They don't give it to him, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yes. He does kind of leave and, like, let her live and leave, basically saying, like, what's your immunity worth to you? Because he has the ring and he's offering to trade the word key that he's pretty sure that they have, knows that they have, for the ring that will grant her immunity to being taken over, which is kind of one of their biggest fears right now. Because, like,
Yeah,
if she gets taken over, they're super fucked.
Lorcan does know that she has the word key because Rowan had to admit to it under Maeve's control. And Lorcan was there.
Because he knows that she at least has one.
Yeah.
But at that point, he didn't have to admit to, like, knowing where it was or what it was. So they
didn't
don't know that it's in the Eye of Elena, but he does know that she has one in some way.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, so that's really fun. So now, on top of trying to plan this thing with the king and destroying the tower so that they can have magic back, we just have Lorcan, who's like, hey, I also want the key, and you're gonna give it to me.
At least right now, we're at least under the impression that he wants it for a not terrible reason. So there's that.
Well, Rowan isn't sure, and neither is Aelin. Like, neither of them are like, is he being truthful? And Rowan is like, well, he can't go against the queen, and he can't do stuff unless it's in her best interest. So, like, maybe he's telling the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a possibility. Rowan, of course, pouts after this happens. And it's because he is a typical freaking fey male. And you want to know what he pouts about? He pouts that Lorcan was able to get close to her, and he didn't send him sooner. He's pulling a Chaol. I don't like it. You're not allowed to act like him, Rowan.
To be fair, he does do that, but I at least took it that he was more bent out of shape about the fact that, so, like, they have the conversation. He says that, like, I failed you tonight. And she says, nope, I didn't. Like, you didn't fail me. And he says, I broke your trust. She says, you did no such thing, Rowan. You told him you wouldn't hand over the key. I would have. God's Aelin, he had me and he didn't even know it. He could have waited another minute and I would have told him. Ring or no ring. Erewhon, witches, the king, Maeve, I would face them all, but losing you, I failed you tonight, and I'm sorry. To me, it felt like he seemed more bent out of shape about the fact that, like, his attachment to her is making him act in a way where he's like, he almost doesn't trust that he knows what the best interest for her as a queen is versus her as, like, the person that he's, like, connected to in this way.
Mm-hmm.
She also says at one point, too, she says, we're both experts at clamming up, so let's make an agreement to talk right now, like even-tempered, reasonable people. Yay! That should be in every single book that has anything to do with miscommunication. Instead, let's just have a fucking conversation, please.
Yeah, he also then finally admits to missing her, which I thought was very wonderful. So when he shows up originally, they embrace, and Aelin pretty much says, I missed you. And he's like, it's been a couple weeks. And then she, of course, internally was like, yeah, I guess to this man who's like 5,000 years old. Not actually, but has lived for decades. A week or two would be nothing. And he makes it seem like she, like, if you care about me, like, I'm only going to be used against you, which, like, isn't incorrect. But still, he could have been like, yeah, I missed you too. Instead, he just kind of like, she said, I miss you. And he's like, swerve. No.
Cool.
It's like, you shouldn't. Okay, thanks, Fae warrior prince.
This is like the moment where he stops pushing her away. And it's so good. Finally. Yes. We're so happy. She, like, her way of showing him that she has complete trust in him is that she shows him, like, her throat, basically. So, like, because Fae male, Fae warrior, predator prey thing that's very common in fantasy books. It's like that. It's like, it's not so much submission, but just trust that he wouldn't hurt her.
Mm-hmm.
and that he's the only person that she like truly trusts with that level of like vulnerability, of like the ability to kill her so quickly, and just the complete surety that he would not do it. It's also like a smell thing.
Yeah. They do the scenting thing, and usually when they're that close, their like scents cross.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the, it's like a very vulnerable, intimate thing for the Fae.
And he like finally, they both finally accept, well, she's been accepting for a while how attracted she is to him, but he finally accepts that he can't do a goddamn thing about it. But he still says, not yet, not now. She says, why?
So like, please? He's like,
the way that I read that is why.
Paper thin.
Yeah. This is, I don't know if this is the best line, because I think the other line that's later in the book might actually be my favorite line. But he says, I want to take my time with you to learn every inch of you. And this apartment has very, very thin walls. I don't want to have an audience. He added as he leaned down again, brushing his mouth over the cut at the base of her throat. When I make you moan, Aelin. Ah! By the word, she was in trouble. So much running trouble. We can't use curse words in this book, apparently, ever.
Yeah.
That she says, this changes things.
Like, things have been changing for a while already. We'll deal with it.
Ugh. Yeah, so then they go to sleep.
We should definitely sleep.
Because again, guys, this is a reminder. This is just one pepper. So we go from happiness to depression, because now we get to go talk about Dorian.
Dorian. So it's Dorian
just,
Demon.
Demon just in case we forgot, guys, Dorian's still fucked.
Yeah, he still has the necklace on. Still has his choker, his really fashionable choker. He's still in there though. He has not been beaten to shreds yet. He still can see through his eyes, sort of. However, he's starting to lose some of the like scary memories of Sorsha, like the last final scene. So playing through every time we've kind of gone back to Dorian, he's like fighting against the demon, and then the demon pushes the like bad memories back into him. The demon's no longer really pushing those bad memories into him, because I would say like the demon's 80% of Dorian and Dorian is 20% of Dorian at this point. The demon has pretty much like broken through most of his walls, and there's just like a thin veil between the two of them that the demon hasn't gotten through yet. So like
I also think that the
draining.
more that he sees of his own humanity, the worse. Like, they do it originally to torture him, and then like as the book goes on, they show him less and less of himself, so that he continues to like forget who he is, because he constantly talks about like not being able to remember his name, not being able to remember other people and what his relationships are to them, and just like being this blank slate that this demon lives in, basically. Like, he's just a shell. And I just find it interesting the way that it like less and less they show him less of what actually tortured him, and instead just tortures him through watching other people get tortured. So it's like less personal. It's more just watching the inhumane things happening to other people.
Yeah. This is the first time, though, that the demon is now feeding on someone in the dungeons, and the demon says that it's delicious, and Dorian agrees. Like, his inner self says that it was, and that he hates himself for it.
Yeah,
he pretty much says he hated himself.
So quick.
Yeah,
but it's
hated
so good.
himself, cursed himself, but the despair coming from the man, as his worst memories ripped him to shreds, it was intoxicating. It was strength. It was life. He had nothing and no one anyway. If he got the chance, he would find a way to end it. For now, this was eternity. This was birth and death and rebirth. So he drank the man's pain, his fear, his sorrow, and he learned to like it. It's where you're like, fuck, we've lost him.
He's just so out of hope that he's in that like, I don't know, like they talk about like when people are trapped in like really, really terrible situations that they like will find good parts about it, because if you can't find a good part to latch onto, you will literally lose yourself entirely and go insane. And that's like what I see this as, because he still does say if he finds a way to end it, he's going for it until then, to keep himself alive and sane enough to be able to do so. He's gonna take whatever he can find, I guess, and there's just nothing. Unfortunately, the only thing is that through, I don't know, his memories just being ripped from him, that there is a reminder that like life is a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Things are pretty bleak for Dorian. And that's all we get.
All we get of Dorian for now.
It's always like one page.
Yeah.
You get one page and you're like, right.
Yep,
cool,
he's still,
thank you.
He's still suffering, got it.
Don't
cool,
worry, we didn't forget,
Sarah.
but we appreciate that you reminded us again. We go back to Manon. And Manon
she gets a letter.
Has finally received a letter. You just got a letter. No, this is not the time. This is not a good letter.
Nope. She got a letter from her grandmother.
The matron.
And her and her
What a
13.
bitch.
Her 13 have been summoned to Oakwald Forest to meet with the King of Otterland and pretty much be the entourage of the matron.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure the matron does not care for the king. Or at least we think. And
God, we hope.
Maybe she even is like a little scared of him. So she's like, I'm going to have my 13 with me too, just in case.
I think it's also because she's like, Manon, she's had problems with Manon in the past.
Yep.
And Manon's been questioning a lot of stuff. So I'm sure Manon's been getting, her grandmother's probably been getting letters about Manon from Barrington.
She's also been apparently getting the letters from Manon and just not responding to them, which is great. Because we know that Manon's been writing her, saying, like, this shit's happening, and what am I supposed to do about it?
Yeah. And Manon's hopeful for the meeting because she gets to meet the king. She gets to have a face-to-face with her grandmother so she can ask her, like, point blank, like, hey, like, do you know that this is happening? Because the letter that she gets back is basically just like, you are told to obey. You have to obey. So Manon is still, like, holding out this hope, I guess, that, like, maybe she isn't getting the letters that say, like, what's actually been happening.
Yeah, like, there's a
but that she's
messenger
just getting, like, complaints from someone else. And she's being told to, like, just follow whatever they want you to do. I don't know what your problem is. She also, they can't take a lead with them. So she, like, tells a lead, you're going to have to stay here and we'll be gone for a while and you're going to have to, like, lay low and, like, don't get yourself in any trouble because no one's going to be here to save you.
Yes.
So they're all preparing to leave. And they're, part of the preparation that we get is from Kaltain's perspective, which we, like, never get. And her perspective is so unhinged. But it's so good.
It's so good.
She basically has just she played dead.
Pretty much.
She played dead inside her own body. Like when the prince the Vogue Prince was like put, or commander or whatever was put inside her.
Yeah, she like cowered.
And she was like, all right, well, I'll just be over here in this corner, totally chill and not at all threatening in any way. And like built her fire up basically. And
she built up her power by nibbling off parts of the demon that was inside of her.
The prince inside her did not notice when she began to nibble at him. But bit by bit, she stole morsels of the otherworldly creature that had taken her body for its skin, who did such despicable things with it. So good.
And then one day, he's like, not really that much, and she's strong now because she's like fed pretty much off of him and his power. And she's like, teehee, I'm going to destroy you now.
The creature noticed the day she took a bigger bite, big enough that it screamed in agony. Before it could tell anyone, she leapt upon it, tearing and ripping with her shadow fire until only ashes of malice remained, until it was no more than a whisper of thought. Fire. It did not like any kind of fire.
And she has shadow fire, which we learned.
Ugh, she had forgotten the name she'd been given, but it made no difference. She had only one name now. Death, Devourer of Worlds. Sick!
In this, I highlighted it, and then I put a note. And it says, let's go, Caltaine!
I think that one of the reasons that I loved this book so much is because, like, God, her story is so good. It's such a good... It's everything that you want out of redemption story and that we haven't gotten in most of the other books that we've gotten. Like, Caltaine's redemption story is just perfectly executed. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, so she kills the demon inside of her, and then she is like, the collar remained, and so she let them order her around. She just
pretended. She's been pretending this whole time that the demon is still
inside of her. So anytime they want her to do a thing, she still does it. She still uses her shadow fire. She's still
biding her time.
Does what she can for the time being. But yeah. She did not. She just... It's just so good.
Which, like, has to be the reason that she talks with
Manon.
That's, like, the reason that she talks with Manon. Is because she's definitely not going to talk to Parrington and anybody else. Oh, it's so good. So good.
Yeah, it definitely took Parrington by surprise when she spoke as well. Because he's like, I haven't heard her speak in a very long time. Because it doesn't seem like she was under control of the demon for a bit, but it doesn't seem like maybe the demon spoke a bit and then just stopped one day, which was when he died. And so Caltaine just like stayed silent and just didn't speak because she couldn't do like demon voice. And so maybe she just kind of like...
Maybe it was until the shadow fire started and then she started talking. Like, that would be a good enough way to play off that, like, something has changed. So now she's speaking or something like that.
Maybe.
I don't know. She's clever as fuck. Also, I think they mention it later, but it is a good point for now, is she mentions later, they're like, they see what they want to see. Like, they're not looking that deep, guys. Like, let's be honest. They think that they've won so aggressively that they do not look any further into, like, stuff.
Yeah.
And it, like, plays a huge part later on. But, like, this is just another example of it. They're probably not batting an eye because they're just so convinced they won. There's no scenario in their minds that Caltaine, this, like, petty woman who was drug obsessed, like a drug addict, had figured out a way to defeat a Volk prince inside her and is just hanging out, waiting.
She also was just a drug addict because they put a ring on her. Not necessarily a ring. What did they do to her that...
I don't think that they had done anything to her. I think she genuinely was, like, a little bit of a druggie because she was just like a pompous...
She was taking opium because of a headache. Her headaches.
Oh, that's true. I don't
Maybe it
know.
was
I don't
because
know
she
what
was
they
just
did.
in proximity
Because
with
she never
Barrington all the
had a
time.
ring.
She never had a ring, but she always was getting headaches. But she also
Yeah.
was at Barrington's side all the fucking time. So,
I
like,
don't know.
there could have been something there. But they never mentioned her having, like,
True.
a necklace or a ring in the first
Yeah.
couple of books until she was taken out. And then they mentioned a, like, bad smell and a woman and a man were in two different carriages. And that was Caltaine and Roland going to Morath.
Yeah.
She got a necklace at some point. She just didn't have it in Throne of Glass. At least.
I think it was when they got to Morath is when she had the necklace.
Yeah.
Because I think when we hear the first description of her from Manon is when it's described. Because it's described as like Roland and her. And I think they both were described as having the chokers on. All right.
So,
What is this? 55. Oh!
Aelin and Rowan are like sleeping or something. Something happens and he like jumps up and is like, someone's broken into the warehouse. And Aelin's like, huh? What? He scents someone. And so they run down into like the warehouse. And of course, him and Aedion are like knives at the ready.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Evangeline who snuck into the warehouse.
So glad no one accidentally murders her.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they scented her by the time they got close enough.
True.
But
I hope so.
She sneaks into the warehouse and she has pretty much a message. She was told to run by Lysandra. And the reason is because Lysandra has been captured. And she was captured by the king's men on behalf of Arabin from the grave.
Because Arabin, this sack of shit.
So even though Aelin manipulated his will, there was still a caveat to it that maybe she didn't see, or it was a different will. He had more than one. I don't know.
I think it was just he had those things out there that were like, if you don't hear from me or whatever, some like I died and you have to send this message out. Like those. He had to have like that kind of stupid shit in place because he's too pompous to think otherwise.
So pretty much Lysandra was captured due to a message from Arabin. And the message talked about her shapeshifter heritage.
Yep.
And that, of course, because shapeshifters would be very beneficial to the king, they go and get her. So, of course, Aelin wants to go immediately to go get her. And Chaol, in this instance, has to be the voice of reason, which isn't normal. And so he is like, hey, I don't think we should go and rescue her from the dungeons.
Not right now.
We have word that the king is going to this place to meet, and she will most likely be taking Lysandra and bringing her to Morath. So, like, we need to ambush the king on the way to there to then rescue Lysandra. Aelin, of course, the only other person who has gone through this with her in this scenario is Chaol. So she looks at him pretty much pleading, saying that they could be feeding on her. Just please help me get her. Nezrin reached for her hand. Cool against Aelin's clammy palms. We will get her back. We will save her together. Chaol just held Aelin's gaze, his shoulders squaring as he said, never again, referring to Nehemia.
Yeah, because she looks at the cut on Chaol's, like, cheek from when she cut him when Nehemia died. So they plan to rescue her. They are very aware that there is a strong possibility that Dorian will show.
Yes.
So they are... This is one part where I did still get frustrated. I got frustrated with Chaol.
Mm-hmm.
Because Chaol asks, what if she has a collar or a ring on? And Aedion says, then she loses a head or a finger. Aelin shot him a look. You don't make that call without me. And Dorian, Aedion asked. Chaol was staring at the map as if he could burn a hole through it. Not my call, Aelin said tightly. Chaol's eyes flashed to hers. You don't touch him. Bitch, what the fuck did she just say? She just said it's not my call. Like, what do you mean?
Well, he was making the call. He was
That's
saying
what
that
I'm
to
saying.
Aedion, not
Yeah,
to
but
Aelin.
his eyes flashed to hers. You don't touch him. Look at Aedion, dude.
That is not how I read that scene. I read
It's
that
exactly
scene
what
as
it says.
Aedion,
Chaol's eyes flashed to hers.
when she
You
said
don't
that.
touch him. I know,
When she
but
said
like,
that.
don't be like, go look at Aedion and be like, don't touch him.
No.
Don't
See,
look at
I did
her.
not read that the way you are reading it. I read
That's
that
fine.
as he like locked eyes with her when she pivoted and saying that it's his call.
Yeah.
And he was thanking her for that by locking eyes with her, and then he was telling Aedion, you don't touch him. Which is a very different scenario than the way you read
I
it.
know. I think I would have wanted the actual, if that's what she meant when writing it, then I need the actual language of his eyes flashed to hers and then looked to Aedion. You don't touch him.
Yeah,
this
I read it
feels
as
aggressive.
that she was letting him make that call, and that was him making the call. It was more of a, since she was making the call for Lysandra. And since they've had conversations before this where she was like, it's not my decision to make. And she's like hesitated to kill him the times that she was given the chance. And he has to recognize, which he does when he sees him, like, oh, that's not Dorian. It's like, yeah, no shit. I've been trying to tell you that forever, but it's fine.
I'm still going to take it my way because I'm annoyed.
Because you just want to be angry at Chaol.
No, he's just not out of my shit list yet, okay? He has work to do to get out of the shit list.
Mm-hmm. AK, you just want to be mad at Chaol.
No.
I don't like
that part
Chaol,
makes me angry.
but I just didn't read it this way.
I'm just reading the words that are in the book, man, okay? And there's nothing in here about him looking at Aedion and saying shit. All it says is Chaol's eyes flashed to hers.
Anyway, the team's going to stake out Oakland and Oakwald and save Lysandra. Lysandra Land. Can't wait to talk about that because I fucking cackled.
Lysandra Land is very good.
So they of course make the trek out to Oakwald the night before because they know at this point they know the witches are going to be there. They know the king is going to be there. They don't really know what's going on. Their only goal is Lysandra, and that is talked about like nonstop. They pretty much say like, even if we come to face to face with the witches, like our goal is not to kill the witches. Our goal is not to kill the king. Our goal is not necessarily to kill Dorian. Our goal is to get Lysandra out.
The day before anything happens, the day before like the meeting's supposed to happen, they stay in an inn, and Aelin and Rowan have another like cute moment. They're like laying in bed, getting ready to sleep. And she basically is talking about like, I can't bury another friend, and panicking about like if anything would happen to him. And then she says in her head, I was foolish to even start down this road when every other man she had let in left some wound in one way or another, accidentally or not. There was nothing soft or tender on his face, only a predator's glittering gaze. When we get back, he said, remind me to prove you wrong about every thought that just went through your head. He's so good!
This is also, of course, she goes, oh? He gave her a sly smile that made thinking impossible. I'll even let you decide how I tell you. With words? His eyes flicked once to her mouth, or with my teeth and tongue. Of course,
He's
she's like,
teasing
"This
her.
inn's really
Sarah's
loud."
teasing us. What the fuck?
Mm-hmm. He's like, she's like, the inn's really loud. No one was going to be able to tell the difference between us and other people. And he's like, no, no. She's like, too bad. And then my favorite thing is that she was smiling when the mattress shifted. Steady footsteps padded towards the dresser, and the sounds of splashing filled the room as Rowan dunked the pitcher of cold water over himself.
Because she like kisses him on like the base of his throat, basically, and he goes, Aelin, please
stop it.
She's like, oh, that's too bad, and like rolls over. God damn it.
The thread
Ha!
that's holding me together is so thin.
So the next day, they actually go to the meeting. So this is the meeting that the witches have come to. So this is everyone's like seeing each other kind of for the first
Everyone's
time,
in the
which
first,
is so
in the
cool.
same place. Like
yes.
literally every player is in the
Everyone's
same exact
in the same
location.
place. So this is a meeting that the witches got called to, and the 13 have been called to. So the king's there, the Blackbeaks are there, the 13 are there, the Wyverns are there. They specifically like see Abraxos like rolling around in a bed of flowers, which is just my favorite tidbit ever. Because they basically like the Aelin and team like creep up onto like a ridgeline so that they can see down to where this this clearing is, where the meeting's supposed to be happening, and they're able to like survey and see everything from up there. So they're able to look at all the wyverns with like poison spiked tails. They describe Abraxos and his spider silk tail that's like been repaired. She can see the witches, and she can see like the king and Dorian come in to the clearing with the like wagon, basically, that it's assumed has Lysandra in it. And then the matron is also there, and she's brought something with her.
She also has a wagon.
Yeah, she has a wagon, and they've kind of talked a couple of times through the book that like she's been making something for the king, like some sort of weapon, and this apparently is the meeting that we learn that whatever weapon has been created, like one of them is done. So she's bringing the weapon to show the king, and the king is bringing a prisoner that he wants the 13 to like take back to Morath with them.
Yeah, they want them to take the prisoner wagon back to Morath, but the weapon is going to stay with their grandmother. Because this isn't the actual weapon. It's just like a
prototype.
Yeah.
Test.
It's like a
small scale
version of it.
Proof of concept, guys.
Yeah.
Their whole plan to get Lysandra out is literally to just like distract them by like causing a ruckus by the wyverns, and then just like slip her out the back and go like run. They do very, very smart thing, and they're like, we're not going to engage. We're not going to get like, they're all here. All the people we want to kill are here, but we are not equipped to deal with this. Like, we still don't have magic. We are rescue Lysandra and get the fuck out.
Yeah. They also, she obviously, Aelin has been in these prison wagons before. So a thing that she knows from the beginning is that she's going to need to know some word marks. And so while they were planning the night before, she pretty much has taught all of them like 3 or 4 different word marks to do to like unlock things, lock things, protect themselves slightly. They all have, pretty much gotten this like light word mark training that she has.
Yeah.
So that they can unlock the wagon, because obviously it's going to be locked in some manner, and they don't have just pliers that they can use to just break things. So they
magical
have to
pliers.
find other ways to do it.
So while all of this is happening, and like they're surveying and getting their plan ready, the covens are meeting as well, oh my god. My brain.
The 13?
While all of this is happening, the Blackbeaks are meeting with the matron, and they're also meeting the king, and they're meeting Dorian. And Manon and Dorian have, like, a moment. Like, a thing happens. And I don't know. Oh, one of the other things that happens is when the matron and the king meet, the matron, like, bows her head to him, and Manon is like, what the fuck did you just do? You don't bow to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's
and
pissed
then, of course,
and confused.
And then the king calls out the wing leader, too. And she sasses him. Him. Grandmother is like, what the frick are you doing?
I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah. Which is, like, weird for Manon, because she still has this...
She sasses him by throwing her grandmother's words back at her, because she had been told by her grandmother to keep her mouth shut, and the king had asked her, are you going to say anything? And Manon says, I was told to keep my mouth shut, unless you'd prefer I get on my knees and grovel.
I do like I don't love the king, obviously, but when he responds to her, he's like, yeah, I think I like you.
He's, like, weirdly sassy. Like, because he did the same shit with Aelin, too, where he would be, like, he's annoyed, but he tolerates her shit in a way that's funny and entertaining. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's a weird character, but he's great. His responses to stuff is, like, I don't know. It's just, she can't help it. She has to even write well for the people who suck.
Yeah. There was something that I noticed that I don't know if you did, but when Manon makes a note about her grandmother's iron teeth beginning to rust in spots. And I don't remember that being a thing when they were training with the wyverns. Like, I don't remember that being noted at any point. So I put, that doesn't seem normal, that her teeth are rusting.
I did not put that as an item. Only because I think when I read it, I just was like, she's old as shit. She's old. And she's aging. Because I think maybe that's what I chalked it up to, is, like, the fact that she's aging because they don't have their magic.
Yeah.
So she can't, like, stay young. But it could be that maybe she's, like, being mistreated or is, like, so wrapped up in this that she's not taking care of herself.
Yeah, the way it's read is, her grandmother grinned, revealing iron teeth that had begun to rust in some spots, and ice licked up Manon's spine.
Yeah.
Where I'm what now? What's happening to Grandma? Does Grandma have a ring on?
It's never mentioned that she has any ring. That's what's weird.
I mean, it's not, no. But, like, what the fuck? What's happening? Is he doing stuff to you that is making your teeth rust? What's happening? Why do you have rusty teeth? Is it because you're old, or is something else happening? Because why is Manon nervous that your teeth are rusty? It probably means nothing, but my brain is like, Manon's either nervous because of that or nervous because her grandmother is, like, just bowing to the king. So it could be either.
It's possible.
Yeah. But the grandmother then, of course, is like, come this way, king, and brings him to her wagon. Mm-hmm. And I think Dorian was going to go inside, or someone was going to go inside.
Manon wanted to go inside.
Oh, Manon was going to go inside.
She wanted to see what they were building, because she's, like, the leader of the witch army. So she's like, all right, great. Got to go see what the thing is.
And of course the king is like,
my son will entertain you.
The prince can entertain
you.
Goodbye. Away. So that is when Manon and Dorian have their little moment.
There was no one in earshot as Manon stopped a few feet away from the crown prince. Hello, princeling, she purred.
So this ties into Manon having these black eyes with gold flecks.
Yeah, this comes up again.
The demon inside Dorian is freaking the fuck out. He keeps telling the prince to turn around, to back up, get away from her.
Yep.
Like, over and over.
Don't speak to it.
Don't speak to it. Like, just step away, get away. Fall Kings, eyes of our masters, it shrieked. Do not touch that one. So, like,
That's what's
this
crazy.
is where you learn about
that
her
bit?
eyes being, like, a Vogue King eyes.
Yeah. Eyes of the Vogue Kings, eyes of our masters. So, like, whatever her bloodline, whatever bloodline she has to be, it's not just like that they bred with the Vogue to create the witches. Her bloodline specifically was bred through Vogue Kings. And for some reason, the Vogue princes are scared enough of that bloodline, even through the witches and not actually the Vogue Kings, to, like, want nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the fuck is in her blood that could be useful for later, but she comes from Vogue Kings. And those are the ones that didn't get affected by the, like, mind trickery by the princes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably why they're so scary, is because the Vogue princes, like,
can't do anything.
They literally have no defense against them.
Yeah.
Their main source of power, protection for themselves, is to torture other people and get them in their own heads.
Get into their brain.
And they can't do that to her.
Yep.
This somehow gives Dorian, like, strength. So
it gives him, like, a second wind, because
yeah,
the last time we saw Dorian, he was, like, cowered in on himself and was, like, really...
And he has not talked through his own body in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, like, the first time that he can.
Yeah, because
it's
now
like
the
something about this thing, like,
cowering
away. He's able to, like, take the forefront of his own body, and he responds, "Hello, witchling," and the words were his own.
He also, of course,
for a moment, he was so stunned that he blinked. He blinked. The demon inside of him recoiled, clawing at the walls of his mind.
Yeah, he, of course, plays off the, like, you're a beautiful woman.
He flirts with her.
Yeah. They learn each other's names, sort of. I don't know if they learn... She doesn't necessarily learn that his name is...
No.
Oh, no,
she
it is.
asks,
Yes.
She asks if he's a man or demon, and he responds, Prince. Also, she says...
She touches his collar, too.
But would you bleed red or black? I'll bleed whatever color you want me to. It's like, I love this one so much because his first instinct when he gets out is so Dorian.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's been through so much shit and he can barely remember his own name. He doesn't really know who he is much. He just knows he's able to get out. And yet his personality is, like, still intact. Like, who he is as a person is intact, despite the fact that he's just been, like, he's not nearly as much as a shell as we're led to believe, if he's still got all of this, of his,
this, like, is the first
personality traits intact.
This is the first time you realize that it's just, like, one or the other is at the forefront, and right now he is.
Yeah.
And so then it's fine because the demon prince isn't, like, fighting against him to be in the front. And it's just when one is in the front that the other one kind of doesn't really know what's going on. She does ask him his name, and this is the first time that he remembers. What is your name? A command, not a question, as eyes of pure gold met his. Dorian, he breathed. Your name is nothing, your name is mine, the demon hissed, and a wave of that human woman screaming swept him away. While this is happening...
This is also very cool, is you get this perspective of, okay, now we swap perspectives to, like, the group, but them listening and watching, like, what's happening down below. Yeah. So, like, the way that this story is told, again, like, I will always 100% advocate for you to read these books, even if you've already listened to us, like, talk about them, because the writing is just not something we'll be able to, like, do justice by. Like, I want everyone to read the words on the page, because the way that this whole section is structured is, like, you're listening to the story, you're understanding the story happening, and you're getting it from multiple different perspectives as it's going on. And it's like that first time that like your crossover's happening, all of your people are together, and it's written so well. So now we got like the perspective from like Chaol hearing this, and the wing leader asks him, "Do you want me to kill you, Dorian?" And he says, "I want you to do a lot of things to me." The prince said. His humanity was gone again. She'd imagined it. The way the king had acted, that was a man who held pure control over his son, confident there was no struggle inside. So, like, you get Chaol's perspective of watching this and hearing Dorian's voice, Dorian's actual voice, and then that going away and turning back in to, like, the prince. You get Aelin, who has the same response of, like, I thought I heard it, but I have to be imagining it. Like, the king is so sure. I'm, like, giving myself false hope. My hope is, like, playing tricks on me. And then she, like, basically walks away. Manon basically walks away, like, ending the interaction saying, "Come find me again, prince, and we'll see about that." And this is when, like, Manon's distracted. The prince is, like, doing his own thing, and Aelin is like, "Now, it's go time. We gotta go.
We gotta go now. I see what's happening. I'll put that away for later.
We'll deal with this
later.
later.
We need to go get Lysandra. That is our main goal, is Lysandra. So they get her out. They run up to the wagon. There are 3 guards. I think it's 3 guards. They pretty much take them out like it's nothing. Real quick. They're out. They open the wagon with word marks, whatever. They take Lysandra out. They shove them in, close the door, lock that shit back up again, and, like, shuffle her into the bushes. And it's just like,
I do like that they put the dead guards into the carriage and close it. That's very good.
They can't just leave them out on the
convenient places to hide a body. In the carriage you're escaping from. Easy.
Mm-hmm.
As they've, like, gotten back into cover, like, they've successfully rescued her, and now, like some people have left to, like, kind of get away, and Aelin hears the matron and Manon kind of come back out, and they get into an argument, and Aelin, like, watches the whole thing happen, like, watches Manon get, like, struck by her grandmother, and them argue about the fact that, like, we find out that Manon's letters had been getting to her grandmother, and her grandmother knew what was going on and is telling her to obey anyways. So she also baits Manon into asking what's in the wagon, like, baiting her into being, like, to finally admitting that, like, Manon doesn't trust her grandmother anymore, and that she wants to know more, and that she's being disobedient.
Manon then goes in the wagons and actually sees what it is.
Yeah. She does go in the wagon, and we don't know what it is yet. But that's basically when the rest of them leave. So, like, the group has, like, observed this interaction, and then they're like, all right, they've gone inside. We're getting out of here now. We're leaving. Chaol, though, isn't there when they go to leave. Okay?
Yep.
He's gone. He has realized that he thinks that he can't be saved, that Dorian can't be saved. So he goes to put Dorian out of his misery and to kill Dorian. Is now the best time to do that? No. But I do think that
this is where
it's a very Chaol decision that he would want to free him of that as quickly as possible and would not want to delay, even if it cost him his life.
Yes.
I think that his mistake in this is that he doesn't take into account the fact that over their goddamn dead bodies, will they let him go and sacrifice himself without helping him? So they're all gonna chase after him.
Yeah, this is also the first time, like, Chaol is finally seeing Dorian for the first time since he's had this, like, demon inside him. And so he pretty much is like, oh, she's right. He can't be saved. And so if he can't be saved, I'm going to be the one that kills him because I don't want someone else to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he, of course, like runs after him. And apparently his tracking skills aren't very good because he goes the wrong way and runs into...
Doesn't track down Dorian.
Yeah, he runs right into Manon and all of her 13 and the wyverns.
Hi, Braxos. We love you.
We love you, Braxos, but, you know, we don't want our
but
friends
please
to
don't
run
eat
into
Chaol.
you. Or do. Or don't. Nah, don't do it.
No, don't do it.
Don't do it.
I mean, it's Chaol, so, like, if he has to eat somebody...
I would say he isn't the worst choice.
Eat Parrington. That sounds great. Or eat Elid's uncle. That's even better.
Yeah. So, they realize he's gone because they get to Lysandra and she's out of breath and she's like, Chaol, he went after Dorian. And of course they're like, fucking hell. All right. What's he doing? We have to go get him. And of course Nezrin, who is like probably Chaol's only true friend at this exact moment, is like, you have to bring him back. Like, you have to.
Yeah.
And Aelin is like, yeah, we're going to do it right now. Run. Like, we're all going. And so they run after Chaol. They realize that he is being held, like, by the throat by Manon. And being questioned for being a spy. And being a rebel. And being all this other stuff.
Aelin does the most Aelin thing. Offers herself in his place. Because she's got zero sense of self-preservation fucking at all.
Well, to be fair, she had a plan. And that plan sort of worked a little bit.
I know. That's true.
So
she's
all
desperate.
Word marks that she used Chaol's blood that was dripping on the ground as she was like shuffling him back behind her to like draw some word marks on the ground in his blood. And so she used the same holding spell that she used in the library with Dorian. Not on Dorian, but with him. And when Manon lunged at her, she got stuck in place. And Manon didn't like that very much. And Aelin and Chaol were like, we're out. See ya. And just book it.
Yeah.
Which,
so she like basically asked who Aelin was. Like, why would you be worthy of the trade to be for Chaol? And she's like, well, I'm Aelin Galathinius. And Manon responds, the Queen of Terrasen. Because she knows from Elid.
mm-hmm.
And like Manon also Manon basically was like gonna let them go.
Yeah, this part confused me.
This
because
is
she
the
was
best part. Manon was like,
she
I'm too fucking
realized-
tired. I don't have the time for this. You're gonna fight. I know this is gonna turn into a fight because if I kill him, you're gonna fight me. I don't want to deal with this. I don't have time.
It was like she pretty much said, I have no interest in prisoners or battling today, but it felt like she was doing that because she realized the Queen of Terrasen, Elid's hope, had not been misplaced, even if the young queen was now towing the dirt and grass, unable to keep still while she bargained for the man's life.
Yep.
Which it felt like Manon was making the decision on behalf of Elid.
Yes, I think she is. She makes the decision on behalf of Elid, and then she also says a little bit later that, like, she needs to get into the skies, needs to lose herself in the clouds, and in the wind for a few hours, days, weeks. She's, like, she's got her own shit that she's fucking dealing with, like, her mom having approved the witches basically being bred, and whatever things she saw in the tent, she's like, I don't have time for you, okay? And Elid likes you, so, like, you can't be all that bad. So, like, fine, whatever. I'll give you your dude, and I will go, and you can go, and we'll just pretend this never happened. And then Aelin says, I guess that makes you smarter than Baba Yellowlegs. And Manon's like, I'm sorry.
What do you know of her?
I would have, what do you know of Baba Yellowlegs? And then she realizes that she's got, like, the witch's mark on her that they talked about before.
Yeah, she,
of, like the
pulls
scent
her.
of Baba Yellowlegs and being the one to kill her. And now Manon's like,
Well,
I've
fuck,
suddenly
now I
got
have
time
to
in
fight
my
you.
schedule. This is crazy. I have time now to deal with you. And this is, yeah, and then she traps Manon with the word marks. She's shuffling her feet around, looking nervous. No, she drew word marks so that you would get trapped and then she could book it. And all of the 13 are kind of left scrambling to try to figure out, like, why is our wing leader frozen? Oh god.
What happened?
So they run. Rowan also says, you are one very lucky woman. You would have been luckier if you just hadn't said anything.
You could have still done the word mark thing in the ground and be like, all right, we're gonna leave.
Yeah.
But, you know, this whole scene has to happen. It's very important that this whole scene happens.
So now we fight in, okay? The 13 and our dream team are fighting now. It's not great.
So, Aelin, Aedion, Rowan, Chaol,
they're
Sandra
running.
are all running. And they're running towards a ravine that happens to have 2 bridges. It's like edge, bridge, middle part, bridge, edge. Yeah. And there's just water and nothingness below them. So they're running. Their idea is we're going to get across the bridge. We're going to cut the bridge. And then the witches can't get us because they can't fly. And the wyverns can't fly over here because there's too much in the way. Like, there's too many trees. There's too much. It's just, like, very wooded. So, like, the wyverns couldn't come down here and, like, fly to narrow, like, pinpoint us. So we'll be fine. It's great. It's a great plan. They're like, we're just going to run. We're not actually going to fight them. So it'll be fine. But, of course, witches are fast as fuck. Like, because they're
witches.
Yeah.
I would think that they're probably as fast as Fae.
Yeah.
And they're not all Fae, so...
Yeah.
Chaol
they're
and, like,
bred,
Sandra
Vogue, and Fae. So it's like, they have the similar, like, speed and strength and, like, you know, sense of smell and, like, all of the other things, sense of hearing. Everything's just amplified a bit. So they, of course, get to the bridge and then they go one at a time because they don't want the bridge to break. They've never been on the bridge before, so they gotta go one at a time. And they catch up.
Astrid! God damn it! We like you!
Yep.
Astrid shoots an arrow to kill Aelin. And she dodges the first arrow and then realizes that a second arrow is coming from her. And Rowan, like, tackles her to the ground and gets hit.
In the shoulder.
Like, right in the shoulder. And he's bleeding profusely. And Aelin, like, lets out a wail, basically. And then they kind of all try to run again. But, like, Manon catches up to Aelin. And then they fight it out.
Yeah. Aelin pretty much... Manon tells Astrid, she's mine. So, like, cut the shit.
They try
Stop
to shoot
shooting
more arrows while they're fighting.
And Manon, like, looks at them as, like, no.
And says no. And then Aelin basically does the same because, like, they're in this middle section that, like, Kat had described. And, like, Aedion had gotten to the other side with Rowan and then, like, drops Rowan off and, like, gets ready to come back. Yeah, with Chaol. And then, like, gets ready to try to come back over. And Aelin's like, no, I don't want you guys over here either. So it's, like, just the two of them. Everyone else has been told to, like, stand down.
She tells Rowan to go. And he's like, no, I'm not going to leave by your side. And then she uses the blood oath against him and says, go. Which
tells him to run.
I'm surprised they didn't have a bigger fight about that, but, you know, that's fine. So
That's true, they don't have a bigger fight about that. I get it, though.
I do.
He would do the same goddamn shit if she did that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But I still am surprised they didn't... I'm surprised Sarah didn't make it more of a thing. based off of Rowan as a character.
Also based off of how much she does not want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe that's the
why
difference
they
is
did
maybe
it,
it's
because
just I don't think that she would use it unless it was to save himself and not to save her. Like, she would never use it in an effort to save herself.
yeah.
She absolutely would use it for him to get out
Mm-hmm.
of a situation that she doesn't think he'll be safe in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a power dynamic, but for good.
It would run. It was a voice that she'd never heard herself use, a queen's voice that came out, along with the blind yank she made on the blood oath that bound them together. His eyes flashed with fury, but his body moved as though she'd compelled him. He staggered across the bridge. I understand. It's a 1v1 situation. Manon told the witches to stand down. She has to tell her people to stand down. We gotta go head to head. It's fair. She didn't really want to fight, but, like, she has to now.
But also, she's the reason they're fighting, because Manon would have let him fucking go. Okay?
Yes. She would have let all of them go.
So, now all bets are off. Manon's like, alright, Aelin, fucking sorry, I gave her a shot, and she had killed a witch, so I gotta deal with this. Their fight is sick. God, it's so cool. They're fighting with, like, Manon's iron teeth, and she's got Wind Cleaver, which is Manon's weapon, and Aelin's got, like, Damaris Goldrin. She's using Goldrin because she has too many fucking swords. So she's using Goldrin, and then they're like, nah, fuck this. Who needs weapons? Let's just, like, daggers and nails. That sounds way better. So they just drop their weapons and go, like, fisticuffs instead. Aelin does get the better of her. And she's basically won. Manon, like, tries to chase after her or whatever, and, like, runs into, like, a temple pillar, basically, of, like, where they're fighting, and everything starts to crumble around her. And, like, Aedion and everyone on her side are, like, screaming for her to, like, run and get off the island. And Aelin hears Asterin let out, like, a heart-wrenching, like, yell to Manon. And she stops. And she, like, feels a tug back towards Manon, like some instinct to go back to her. And she makes the decision to go and save Manon's life. And so she goes back to Manon and, like, helps her up and helps her get back to the other side of the ravine, like, to safety.
I loved this part.
The conversation they have is fantastic.
Aelin was upon Manon, lifting rock and stone off from her body. And Aelin pretty much says to her, "You're too good of a fighter to kill." And that is what she uses as her reason for saving her. She's like, "You should let me die." And she's like, "You're too good of a fighter to kill."
So good. And then she says, "If I die because of you, I'll beat the shit out of you in hell."
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
"You should let me die." I know. Yeah.
I get told
we gotta stuff
go
all the time. We got shit to do. Get up. So Aelin, like, drags her across the bridge as the whole, like, middle island just crumbles and falls into the ravine, pretty much. But they make it to the other side. Aelin looks down at the witch. She's kind of, like, barely coherent, and she, like, passes out. But she notices, before she does, Aelin runs to Rowan to, like, make sure he's okay.
And she can see him. So, like, she sees her say Rowan's name, and then she sees Rowan say back to her, like, as he's about to pass out, he says Fireheart. He calls her Fireheart. And she says, when she awoke, they were gone. Only minutes had passed, because then there were booming wings and Abraxos' roar. Then there were Astrid and Sorrel rushing for her before their wyverns had even fully landed. The Queen of Terrasen had saved her life. Manon did not know what to make of it, for now she owed her enemy a life debt, and she had just learned how thoroughly her grandmother and the King of Otterland intended to destroy them. What the fuck is in the wagon tent thing? Please, God. Mm-hmm. What is in there? Manon knows. Manon, can you tell us, please? I'm scared. We're all scared. So that was the best freaking fight scene. So good. This is why I get so excited when I see shit online. It's like, oh, like, you know, X company is like looking into whether they're going to make a Throne of Glass TV show. And I'm like, this scene, please, can you do this first? I know there's other books, but just, could you do this one?
I was like, I just want to see it.
It's going to be so good.
So, Manon now owes Aelin a life debt, which is great information to have. Because...
How convenient.
It's very convenient that now we have a witch as an ally, sort of. Yay. Temporary ally. It's a life debt, so technically, like, once she pays it, she's like, she can be just like, I'm out. But based off of how Manon is Manoning, she's starting to have a heart. And the 13 have a heart. And so now we're like, okay, now she has a reason. And, like, based off of this language, it makes it feel like life debts are very sacred to, like, the witches in general.
Because, I think it's witches and fae.
Yeah. It's very, like, now that she owes her, she has to protect Aelin, and she has to do all these things because there's this life debt. She already was doing it slightly.
She would have definitely protected Aelin just because she's a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's still, even, like, at that point, she was like, she's just kind of a witch. And then she, like, said, yes, I'm a witch. And she's still, like, I don't know. It still felt like she was putting her in, like,
the hesitancy,
dangerous
but that's what I think. It's not that she's not a witch. It's that she is a witch. She has to learn how to protect herself. Mm-hmm. Like, Manon's not just gonna, like, baby her and, like, guard her, but she is one of her own kind. So mm-hmm. she will protect her and get her out of situations the best that she can, but she's not just going to, like, give her a free ride and, like, just let her be protected behind the witches and not serve the community. Because, like, they mm-hmm. are a group. They are there to protect each other as well. Yeah. And Aelin is absolutely going to be a weak link if she can't figure out how to protect herself too. Which is something that I at least appreciate about Manon, in the way that, like, she does realize that she's not really a witch, but she could still find a way to protect herself and protect other people.
Yeah. I still just like this. It feels like she was leaning towards, like, being good. She was, like, leaning towards it, and this was like, well, I have this life debt now. Now I have to. Oh, shucks. Too bad.
Also, fuck you, Grandma, for letting the goddamn dudes just impregnate witches
mm-hmm.
for funsies, I guess.
Yep.
She's super done with her grandmother. I think she kept hoping
that she wasn't getting
that her grandmother
was
wrong, so then she wouldn't have to defy her. Like, she wanted to get out of jail free card, and now she's like, well, fuck. Whoops.
Now I have to go against my grandmother.
Yeah, I gotta go deal with that now, I guess.
Yeah.
But
So our dream team has left. They're running. Rowan is very injured because he has no magic to heal himself. He is very weak. Aedion, luckily, is with them, and he was a foot soldier for a very long time and fought in many battles without magic. And so he takes blood moss, like, chews it up and then shoves it into his wound and is like, we're going to stop this bleeding for a bit while we travel. So
battle medic.
Yeah, pretty much field medic using the environment to help save Rowan's life. But Rowan is being carried by Aedion and Chaol at this point. Chaol is also injured, not like as bad, but he was being held pretty much by his throat by a witch.
He's fine.
So he's not 100%, but he's also not like Rowan 30% currently. They argue about camping overnight in the woods and like another place to be. And Nesrin mentions that her aunt or there's someone in her family in
It's
her
her father.
household. No, is a midwife.
Oh, it's the man who runs the country house at her father's country house.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
so it's
is
someone that
married to a
works
midwife.
technically for.
Yeah. Because
I was like, there's
Chaol's
a
the one that
midwife
brings
in
up.
there.
Chaol's the one that brings up that her country estate isn't far from here, and
Yeah.
then Nesrin basically puts together that like she's not necessarily a healer, but there is a midwife that could at least do something. It's better than the nothing that we fucking have right now. So
Yeah.
we should do that.
So they, of course, Aelin has to remind Nesrin who she is and is like, hey, so the king wants me dead as a reminder. I need you to know that, like, your country home is in danger if anyone there decides to tell them I am here, or Rowan is here, Aedion's here, or Chaol is here. And they defy us. Like, they will be dead. And Nesrin's like, yeah, got it. Perfect. So they show up. They get to the country home. And
who's there? Who's at the country home?
Runs.
Yay!
Well, first Fleetfoot like starts barking, and then there's like a moment between Aelin and Fleetfoot where they like make eye contact, and she just books it to Aelin. And it's just, my heart just made me so happy.
The dog leapt upon her, licking and whining and wagging her feathery golden tail.
We love Fleetfoot. Fleetfoot is still alive.
Guys, Fleetfoot's still
audio
okay.
List, everybody. Fleetfoot's fine. She's okay. She's been living her best dog life, chasing sheep and goats or whatever farm animals exist there. We love her.
The healer is able to heal Rowan.
The midwife, yeah.
Yeah, midwife gives Aedion props for the blood moss. Like, you saved him. That absolutely saved his life.
He would be dead if it wasn't for that.
Like, she goes to kind of heal other people and kind of inspect them and see if they're okay. And while she's doing that, Aelin and Chaol like have a chat. And she talks, basically like questions him about like, hey, what were you doing? you were going out there. She says, would you truly have killed him if you'd had the chance? Yes, Chaol breathed. I was ready for that. She slowly turned to him. We'll do it together. We'll free magic, and then you and I can go in there and end it together. You're not going to insist that I stay back. How can I deny you that last gift to him? Ugh.
Then Chaol, which is a slight, he's pivoting towards maybe his redemption arc. Or at least his redemption phase.
Look, it's begun, okay? This is the book where it starts. It's growing.
Aelin, her shoulders sagged slightly. I don't blame you. If it had been Rowan with that collar around his neck, I would have done the same thing. The words hit him in the gut as she walked away. A monster. He'd called her weeks ago. He had believed it and allowed it to be a shield against the bitter tang of disappointment and sorrow. He was a fool. In my notes, Chaol. I wrote, Chaol's head is slowly exiting from up his ass. Because it was really far up there. My God.
I need that. I need that on a t-shirt.
A sticker, maybe.
I just need a t-shirt that says, "When will Chaol's head slowly exit from his ass?" Oh god, that's great.
So they rest overnight, and Aelin, Rowan, Aedion know that like we need to not be here for a very long time. Like we can't be here. We have shit to do. We also don't want to like endanger their lives by being here for an extended period of time. So like they get up ass crack of dawn and make to leave. Aelin said goodbye only to Fleetfoot, who had slept curled up by her side during the long night that she watched over Rowan.
I love you, Fleetfoot. You
so
make my
the
heart
three
so
of them
happy.
leave. Chaol, Nezrin, Lysandra?
Yes, Lysandra's also there.
They just stay. And then the three of them are like, see ya. Bye.
Gotta go.
And then we pivot back to Manon, who rightfully so is a little pissed off. She's pissed off at her grandmother. She's pissed off at the king. She's pissed off at the fact that now she owes a life debt to the Queen of Terrasin. She's just kind of like mad that everything's happening. She's mad that she has to be the one to defy her grandmother. She's mad that like the witches are being taken and tortured and stuff is being done to them. Like she's pissed. So she her and Abraxos go and pay a visit to the king on his trek back to Rifthold. And they land in front of him, along with the 13. All the wyverns just land right in front of the king and his like entourage going back to Rifthold. Which
is so badass and fucking terrifying.
Yes.
To read.
There is a note that the king did not seem perturbed at all, but Dorian beside him cringed, which my assumption is that's the demon because Manon is right there and the demon is like, oh fuck.
Not this one again. Shit.
I can't be here. Manon lets him know that rebels showed up and attacked them and they stole his prisoner, but she and the witches caught them and killed all of them, including the prisoner, because they don't want to be a chauffeur, pretty much. She's like, it's not our job. We are weapons. We're not chauffeurs. To, like, bring your, I don't know, prisoners back and forth to the mountain. So, Manon kind of gives them, like, a little out. So she says, there were rebels. She's killed them. They tried to take the prisoner. She also killed the prisoner. So now...
Whoops.
Oopsies. And then she's like, I don't want to be part of this bullshit anymore. And then Manon leaves. She's like, all right, really great. Really great stand in front of the king, but also kind of terrifying. But also I'm like, what's he going to do to you now?
I know, like... that's the fear. There it is. Right there. I remember reading that and being like, fly away. Don't do this. Don't. This is a bad idea. I don't like this at all. I don't know how much power he has. He's scary. Please don't die. He just had someone cut Sorcer's head from her body, okay? I would like your head to stay attached to your body. Also, please don't endanger Abraxos. He's literally my favorite thing on the planet.
Yes.
Abraxos, Fleetfoot. Not allowed to die. Not allowed to get hurt. Nothing can happen to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
She does ask about the weapon a bit.
Yeah. To which he basically just responds, you're asking too many questions. I'm not going to tell you shit.
The king's face was turning purple with impatience, but Manon was already taking to the sky, Abraxos beating his wings hard. She watched the prince until he was a speck of black hair and wondered what it was like to be trapped within that body. So they leave, but she definitely made a stand in front of him, in front of the king, that is.
We do, so like from Manon's perspective, we do get a little bit of information about the weapon, which none of it's good.
Nope.
All it says is the weapon wasn't for winning glory or triumph or for the love of battle. It was for extermination. A full-scale slaughter that would involve little fighting at all. Any opposing army, even Aelin and her warriors, would be defenseless. So that's good.
I think in this
cool.
phase is when they describe it as being mirrors, but at some point, I don't remember.
Yeah.
The replica inside the wagon had been a fraction of the size of what was depicted on the plans nailed to the wall. Giant, transportable battle towers, 100 feet high, their insides lined with the sacred mirrors of the ancients. Mirrors that were once used to build and break and mend. Now they would be amplifiers, reflecting and multiplying any power the king chose to unleash, until it became a weapon that could be aimed at any target. If the power were Kaltain's shadow fire, is like the first thing she thinks of, because it's the first power she's seen.
That's true.
And she's already like, that's fucking terrifying. It's scary by itself. Now let's make it stronger. It's even scarier.
They're basically just like redoing the clock towers, but making them movable. And then like everything on the inside is just
obliterate,
rather than like the spell with on the inside. I'm realizing this now. This is how my brain is working this out. They're making the movable clock towers, and then it'll just make the triangle of the spell that magic has. But if they use something like Shadowfire, then just everyone inside will just be fucking experiencing Shadowfire until someone kills them, I guess.
Until it kills them. Because that's what the test with Dorian was.
That's true. They were all begging for death, rather than
like,
actually
light the make the flame go out, and he put ice through the whole thing, and then it like centralized, and the flame went out. Yeah, so it would just be whatever power then ricochets, then kills the whole center. We're back at Morath, and Aelin has been. She's like, well, the 13 are gone. My plan is still to hitch a ride out on these wagons.
Yeah.
And so she finds out that the supply wagons are showing up. And she was like, sick, sounds great. So the wagons are here. And she's like, I'm just going to go up and grab my stuff.
Yeah. She's been like stashing stuff up in her room. And she's like,
Manon's room.
Right. In Manon's room.
Technically.
Which is where she's been staying.
Yeah.
And she's like, cool, I'll just get my shit and I'll get out of here.
Yeah. So she walks up all this giant tower, and she's like, oh, this is taking a while. I probably should have left my stuff downstairs. This seems like a lot of work. And then she opens the door, and who is sitting on her bed? AKA her hay pile.
It's Manon's bed, too, which is even worse.
She refilled the water skin each morning and had amassed a little supply of food in a pouch. Aelin threw open the door to Manon's room, searching for the pallet where she kept her supplies. But Vernon was inside. He sat on the edge of Manon's bed as if it were his own. Going somewhere, Aelin? And you're like, oh.
Dun, dun, dun!
Fuck. So, Vernon has known the whole time that Aelin was planning on leaving. So, he either knew that she was planning on leaving with the wagons, and that's why he came, or he thought that, like, the witches were going to save her somehow. I don't know.
He tells her, too, that he knows about her being a Blackbeak and a witch. And he's like, Blackbeak blood is in your veins, along with our family's generous line of magic. He's captured her, and he's, like, basically taking her down to, like, the dungeons. Because he's not going to let her leave. He hauled her down the stairs, and bile burned her throat. There was no one coming for her, because she had belonged to no one. The witches don't have magic, not like us. But you, a hybrid of both lines. Vernon gripped her arm harder, right over the cut he'd made, and she cried out. The sound echoed hollow and small down the stone stairwell. You do your house a great honor, Aelin. He leaves her in a freezing dungeon cell, locks the door.
In the dark, like pitch black.
In the dark.
She pretty much notes that there's no light when the door shuts.
Yeah. And just slams the door and basically is like, I'll leave you here until you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Or until we're ready for you. Gross. Manon's been going through all of this shit. She goes to Oakwald. She gets into a confrontation with her grandmother. She then fights with Aelin. And
Yep.
then she goes and immediately has like a face-to-face standoff sort of with the king. And then she flies back to Morath. And the second she lands, Duke Parrington's like, I need to see you in my council chambers. And she's like, I just want to fucking lay down. I would like to shower. I'm covered in debris and blood and like, I just want to shower. But she goes. And she goes and meets with him. And he's like, explain your appearance, as if
The gall. The audacity!
she has disgusted him in some way. And she's like, I just fucking got here from your stupid task. Now I'm here. And I would like to go shower. But you needed to see me the second I landed. So here I am. You can see me. Covered in blood and dirt.
This is what you wanted.
Rebels attacked us. I killed them all. The Duke then gives her a stack of papers, which is the first time he's like let her into what he's planning, which is kind of good because now she's like leaning on the good side. So we're like, yes, now she has an inside scoop. This is great. So he pretty much gives her status reports on enemies, larger targets to strike, things like that. She questions him, of course, because as we know, Roland went up to their Avery, Airy, not Avery.
Yeah.
Their Airy, and attacked them. And she's like, so were you the one that sent that demon prince into our barracks? And then Parrington was like, Roland had outlived his usefulness. Who better to take care of him than your 13? This is when she realizes that they're just like using her to do their dirty work, which she already pretty much yelled at the king for doing.
It took her so long to get to that conclusion.
Mm-hmm. She also notes that Kaltain is still there, a shell. She questions like attacking the Duke, but is also scared that like Kaltain's gonna use the shadow fire on her
again.
But she read the reports on Eelway, Millisand, Fenharrow, the Red Desert, Wendlin, Terrason. There is a report in there that talks about Aelin Galathinius appearing in Wendlin and using fire to kill the king's army. And she has this like note, this like flashback to the lead saying that Aelin had fire magic. She could have survived the cold. And so now it's like really solidified that Aelin is definitely the person that she was just fighting. But she couldn't say that.
And that she's like confirms that she's a big enough deal to them to have her on their radar.
Yeah. It also brings up Bren. They believe... So there's a report for Aedion from associating with rebels. He had been rescued from his execution mere weeks ago by unknown forces, possible suspects Lord Ren Alsbrook of Terrason. So they also have Ren on their radar, even though he's like in hiding.
Yeah.
Or
we
sent him away.
We basically had Nezarin earlier, who gives all of the updates to Aelin and team about what's been going on in all the other books. And this is basically the meeting that Manon gets all of the updates about what's been going on with Aelin and team from all of the other books.
Yeah.
So, kind of now, at this point, like, everyone's up to speed, at least in terms of, like, knowing who everyone else is, knowing what the threats are, and... like, it's such a good book in and of itself, but it still is such a massive amount of setup for, like, Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. And, like, there's still so much to happen and set up that, like, we are 4 books in. This is book 4, if you're not counting Assassin's Blade, which we read before. Yeah. And still, we've just now, in book 4, gotten to the part where, like, okay, everyone knows who everyone else is now.
Yep.
Which is crazy. So, yeah. Next couple books there's a lot happening.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
We got 3 books left to go, and they're all the thickest. It's a good time, though.
So, she also questions the Duke about this weapon. She's like, what do you need this weapon for? Like, what is my grandmother's weapon for? What's the necessity of the weapon my grandmother is building? A tool like that could be catastrophic. If there's no magic, then surely obliterating the Queen of Terrasen can't be worth the risk of using those towers. And Harrington pretty much just goes, better to be overprepared than surprised. And you're like, well,
I don't trust you at all, man.
Can Aelin be overprepared and not surprised instead of you being overprepared and not surprised?
No, all of Aelin's overprepared. All of her court is suppressed. All the time.
We have full control of the towers. This is base information, again, wing leader. Continue to prove yourself and you'll receive more. And you're like, fuck.
And then he asks again about the coven.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll have them.
I was waiting to see who behaved themselves while I was away. I'll give it to you in 2 days. He's like, tomorrow. And she's like, 2 days. It's like, all right. This is when Astrid pretty much says, we need to talk. So, Manon, Abraxos, Astrid, and I don't remember her wyvern's name, but I know it's blue. Do they even say it?
Does it say the wyvern's name, actually?
I don't know if they ever... Maybe that's why I don't know its name, because they never give it a name.
Sad.
But they talk about... No, sky blue female. That's it. Astrid and sky blue female. So they fly off into the mountains. The 4 of them.
I'm gonna call her Sky. Her name's Sky.
That works. I was like, I just know she's blue, but I don't know why she doesn't have a name in my brain.
And Astrid's wyvern Sky.
Yes, there we go. So they go and fly into the mountains, and this one is a rough one. Not gonna lie. This one, my heart was breaking.
Yeah. This one genuinely made me cry.
Yeah.
Astrid tells... Basically, Astrid is telling her the story of, like, how she became the, like, vicious second that Manon respects so much. During, like, the years that Manon had been out on, like, a bunch of missions and stuff before she had, like, returned and really taken up the 13, like, as her group. Astrid had been out hunting, like, witches, and she, like, got caught in a bad storm and fell off of her broom out of the sky, and, like, a human man, like, found her and took her in and just nursed her back to health. And she basically was like, I would have killed him on the spot if I had any of the strength to do so. And it's the only reason he survived. And then he, like, took care of me and nursed me back to health. And then they basically, like, fell in love. And she stayed there and would, like, go back and visit him. And just spent as much time as she could with him. And they had, like, a relationship. And then when she finally had to go back, she found out that she was pregnant. And, like, went back to the matron and, like, was basically, like, congratulated, because witchlings are very sacred.
They're sought after. They're, like, hard.
Right.
So it's like you have to make it to a certain point.
She waited.
And then, yeah. Once you get past,
she didn't tell anyone until I told no one, not until I knew that the pregnancy would actually survive those first few months. But I made it to 3 months, then 4. Then when I couldn't hide it anymore, I told your grandmother. She was pleased and ordered me on bed rest in the keep, so nothing disturbed me or the witchling in my womb. I told her I wanted to go back out, but she refused, and I knew better than to tell her I wanted to return to that cabin in the forest. I knew she'd kill him. So I remained in the tower for months, a pampered prisoner. You even visited twice, and she didn't tell you I was there. Not until the witchling was born, she said. I made a plan. The moment I was recovered from the birth, the moment they looked away, I'd take the witchling to her father and present her to him. I thought maybe a life in the forest, quiet and peaceful, would be better for my witchling than the bloodshed we had. I thought maybe it would be better for me. I gave birth. The witchling almost ripped me in two coming out. I thought it was because she was a fighter, because she was a true Blackbeak, and I was proud. Even as I was screaming, even as I was bleeding, I was proud of her. She was stillborn. I waited to hear that cry of triumph, but there was only silence. Silence. And then your grandmother struck me. She beat me again and again. All I wanted was to see my witchling, and she ordered them to have her burned instead. She refused to let her see me. I was a disgrace to every witch who had come before me. I was to blame for a defective witchling. I had dishonored the Blackbeaks. I had disappointed her. She screamed it at me again and again. And when I sobbed, she branded me. Had them heat up the iron in the same flame where my witchling burned, and stamped each letter herself. She said I had no business ever trying to conceive a Blackbeak again, that most men would take one look at the word and run. And she had, like, pulled her shirt up and showed Manon that her grandmother had branded unclean, like, right in the center of her chest, basically.
Yeah, like, her belly, I think.
Across her belly. And Manon realizes that she hadn't seen her, like, naked for years. Like, they all change in front of each other. Like, they're all not shy about their bodies. And that she had not noticed this, like, fundamentally wrong thing about Astrid. She hadn't noticed that the reason that she became such a ruthless killer was that she had no hope left. She had no joy. There was no love. She was just a absolute killing machine. And it was what she liked best of Astrid. And the reason that Astrid had been acting out so much and had started becoming this different person was because of all of this hope that had been put into her and all of this trauma of this happening again to all of these witches, the thing that she went through, going through, like, her exact trauma, and Manon doing nothing about it. It's like her worst fear of what would Manon have done if she had known. And she had always suspected, too, that the reason that Manon was never told about Astrid is because Astrid believed that Manon would never let what happened to her happen.
Yeah.
And now she's getting this very real look at, oh, I was wrong. Apparently, Manon will just let them do whatever the fuck they want. So, like, it's very traumatizing to Astrid. It's the reason that she's been having so much trouble with what's been going on.
Manon looked at her cousin's shirt as if she could see through to the brand beneath. That is why you've been behaving this way. I am not foolish enough to pretend that I don't have a weak spot where witchlings are concerned. Manon responds, I don't think it's a weak spot. You're to be reinstated as my second. The fact that she goes, I don't think it's a weak spot. I was like, yes, we have her. We've got her locked in.
We've got her
locked in.
Yay. I am so sorry. I am sorry, Manon. You have nothing to be sorry for. Are there others who my grandmother treated this way? Not in the 13, but in the other coverings. Most let themselves die when your grandmother cast them out. So that was, like, the other pieces. After she had been branded and beaten, she was, like, basically thrown out into the cold and, like, left out there to die. And the only reason she didn't die is because Sorrel and
Vesta.
I think
Sorrel and Vesta.
Sorrel and Vesta basically, like,
found her
and, like, nursed her back to health, and then
pretty much went against
her
grandmother to save her life.
This is
Which
also...
you learn that, like, so they knew this happened as well, and it's a
and
big
they all
reason
kept
that
it from her.
they also have been against what's been happening. It's like all of the 13 knew this was happening, but Manon didn't.
Manon had never been told. She had been lied to. Manon gazed westward across the mountains. Hope, Elite had said, for a better future, for a home. Not obedience, brutality, discipline, but hope. We need to proceed carefully. Astrid blinked, the gold flecks in her black eyes glittering. What are you planning? Something very stupid, I think. That's my favorite Manon line. Something very stupid, I think. It also, like, feels exactly like something Aelin would say, too, and I love them so much. Their dichotomy is so good. Don't worry, they're gonna be friends in the end. It's gonna be fine. She's becoming too great of a person to, like, not go and help Aelin. There's just no way.
Yes. Manon's on her redemption arc as well.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. This is, honestly, it's one of the reasons why Chaol's redemption arc, it genuinely does surprise me that it, like, doesn't hit for me. Because, like, Caltain's masterful. Like, Manon's written so well. Like, they're all, even, like, Rowan's in the beginning. Like, Rowan's a piece of shit. Like, he genuinely just, like, treats her like fucking garbage. And then, like, okay, great. Wait, well, this is fine. We're doing great. And it's just Chaos isn't there. Come on.
Rowan is, like, on bed rest at this point. They're back at the apartment.
He super loves.
Yeah. He, like, sleeps. He's practically unconscious for a while. He's in bed for a long time. The first time he, like, comes to, he hears Aelin talking to Chaol, I believe? No, Aedion. They're talking about, Aelin and Aedion are talking about how they plan to kind of put everything in motion now. So, like, their goal, like they said, blow up the tower, kill the king, kill Dorian in whatever order. Tower first, but
Any
the other
order
two
at this point is good.
we're not sure. So they're now in the planning phases of, like, how exactly you're going to do this. So Aedion and Aelin are talking. That's when Rowan kind of wakes up. She does not leave his side. She's sitting next to him the entire time. You're going to ask Ress and Brulo to, like, leave a door open and we can just sneak in. And Aelin's like, I'm going to go through the front door. Why would I sneak in? I'm going right through the main gates. Which... fantastic.
It's a bold strategy. That's for
you
sure.
know, don't be so simple-minded. I'm going to walk through the front door. Of course she was. Rowan let out a groan, his tongue dry and heavy in his mouth. She whirled to him, half lunging across the bed. How are you feeling? You seem all right. Fine, he grunted. He said as much, and Aelin smiled. If you're in the mood for violence, then I suppose you're just fine. But the words were thick. Her eyes gleamed. Please don't ever do that again, she breathed. Next time I'll ask them not to fire arrows at you or me. Aedion cleared his throat. We've been thinking up a plan for freeing magic and taking out the king and Dorian. He goes, just tell me tomorrow. I'm too fucking tired for this shit.
It's so good.
And he, of course, goes back to sleep. After, he says, Aedion, thank you, which I thought was very sweet.
Yeah.
And she shook her
Also,
Aelin shook her head.
He says back, anytime, brother. So cute.
Yes. Aelin was looking between them, her lips pursed again. What? He said. She shook her head. You're too nice when you're wounded. It's unsettling.
He asks her too, like, why she saved Manon. And she says, because that golden-haired witch, Asterin, Aelin said, she screamed Manon's name the way I screamed yours. How can I take away somebody who means the world to someone else, even if she's my enemy? I thought you were dying. It seemed like bad luck to let her die out of spite. And falling into a ravine seemed like a pretty shitty way to die for someone who fights that spectacularly. Rowan smiled, drinking in the sight of her. The pale, grave face, the dirty clothes, the injuries, yet her shoulders were back, chin high. You make me proud to serve you. Proud to serve you. A jaunty slant to her lips, but silver lined her eyes. I know. They're so cute! And then immediately, the next fucking line is, "You look like shit," Lysandra said to Aelin.
I like this because she goes, "You look like shit." And then she remembered Evangeline, who stared at her wide-eyed and winced. Sorry.
Sorry. Evangeline refused to hold her napkin in her lap. Refolded her napkin in her lap. Every inch the dainty little queen. You said I'm not to use such language, and yet you do. I concur, Lysandra said, as Aelin suppressed a smile, because I'm older and I know when it's most effective. And right now, our friend looks like absolute shit. I love them.
Then Evangeline lifted her eyes to Aelin, her red gold hair bright in the morning sun through the kitchen window. "You look even worse in the morning, Lysandra."
My God.
The three of them. I
so
just
good.
can't wait for just the three of them interacting for more books. I'm very excited.
Forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah. Of course, they try to dismiss Evangeline because they want to have like a talk. So she goes, "Hey, can you go on the roof and raise hell with Aedion and Rowan? Take care with Rowan, though. He's still on the men, but pretend like he isn't. Men get pissy if you fuss."
Oh, I love them so much. This made me fucking cry, also. I genuinely did cry at this whole conversation. So, I don't even know. I just want to just read it. It's so good. You came for me, Lysandra said, so quietly that it was hardly a breath. All of you came for me. She had told Nezrin and Chaol in detail of her overnight stay in a hidden dungeon beneath the streets. Already the rebels were combing the sewers for it. She remembered little of the rest, having been blindfolded and gagged, wondering if they would put a wordstone ring on her finger. Had been the worst of it, she said. That dread would haunt her for a while. You thought we wouldn't come for you? I never had friends who cared what happened to me other than Sam and Wesley. Most people would have let me be taken, dismissed me as just another whore. I've been thinking about that. Oh? Aelin reached into her pocket and pushed a folded piece of paper across the table. It's for you and her. We don't need... Lysandra's eyes fell upon the wax seal, a snake in midnight ink, Clarice's sigil. What is this? Open it. Glancing between her and the paper, Lysandra cracked the seal and read the text. I, Clarice Duvency, hereby declare that any debts owed to me by... The paper began shaking. Any debts owed to me by Lysandra and Evangeline are now paid in full. At their earliest convenience, they may receive the mark of their freedom. The paper fluttered to the table as Lysandra's hand slackened. She raised her head to look at Aelin. Ouch, Aelin said, even as her own eyes filled. I hate you for being so beautiful, even when you cry. Do you think I'd leave you enslaved to her? I don't know what to say to you. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to. Lysandra put her face in her hands and sobbed. I'm sorry if you wanted to do the proud and noble thing and stick it out for another decade, Aelin began. Lysandra only wept harder. But you have to understand that there was no rutting way I was going to leave without. Shut up, Aelin, Lysandra said through her hands. Just shut up. She lowered her hands, her face now puffy and splotchy. Aelin sighed. Oh, thank the gods. You can look hideous when you cry. Lysandra burst out laughing.
So good.
It's so good.
So Evangeline and Lysandra are free, and they can go get their tattoos removed from their arms, which is their, like, we are owned by... It's their,
it's their debt
version
mark,
of
basically.
the blood oath type thing. It's like they're enslaved to her pretty much. This is all happening very quickly. We flip back to Manon and Astrid on the mountain. They spent the night there. And the big thing about this is they're planning to go to back to Morath, but Manon was like, I have something else I need to do, and I might need your help with real quick.
Pit stop.
And so they grab a couple supplies, and they head back out. Meanwhile, it's like days have passed. Elite's still in the dungeons. But Manon and Astrid fly towards Rifthold. And my thought immediately was, she's having a tug to Dorian. And yeah, so they go and do that. And meanwhile, it's been 4 days and Elite is still in the freezing dungeon. And she really does not think anyone's coming for her. Her hope was Manon, but at this point, she's like, it's been 4 days. I wasn't a witch. I wasn't witch enough. Like, she doesn't care for me.
Witch enough.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
She says there's no one coming for her. Like, she thought...
That's so sad.
4 days and Manon had not come for her. None of the Blackbeaks had. She didn't know why she expected it. Manon had forced her to spy on that chamber after all. She's just like, I had this little hope that maybe Manon would come and get me. Yeah. I just feel so bad because Elite is just full of hope, and every little thing, it's like, no, no, no. Go away.
No.
Okay, Rowan is feeling a little better. He's still in pain. There are many points, this point in the story, where Rowan goes, how the hell do humans do this?
I
And I'm
love
like,
that part. He's like,
yeah,
I didn't
buddy.
give humans enough credit. This is exhausting.
Yeah. He's tired. He's training with Aedion. He knows that Aedion isn't going like super hard on him because Aedion knows he's injured, but he's also like, how did Aelin do this before she was a fit? Like, had magic. Like, I thought I was strong. Here I am.
Especially like the
in
healing
pain.
part of like healing and then also training while you're still healing. He's like, this sucks.
No, he hadn't given humans nearly enough credit all these years.
He's woken up. Rowan's woken up from sleep from a male scent. And goes outside to find Lorcan on the roof. Mm-hmm. And Lorcan's first thing that he sends to him is, should I thank you for putting on pants? What a little shit. But Rowan replies, I didn't want you to feel inadequate. Oh, so good. He says that he basically like says that he slaughtered the word hounds and then is like they're looking for an answer to like his question from earlier of wanting to protect Aelin. Like he's hoping to basically like manipulate Rowan into being like, this is the thing that will protect her. Just give me the eye of Elena, give me the word stone, and I'll give you this ring and you'll be able to protect her. And
this one got me.
This one got you?
Motherfucker.
This one got me as well.
The Arabin one got me too. This is the same exact situation. The Arabin one also,
yeah.
The Arabin one, I was like, oh, fuck. This one, I went, God damn it, Rowan. So I was like, Rowan, don't do a Chaol.
Basically, like, because we know that the conversation had already happened of, like, Rowan being like, I failed you. Like, I would have given him anything he wanted. Rowan gives him the Eye of Elena and takes the ring and then, like, goes back to bed and gives the word stone. Or, yeah, the word key? Words teeth.
Yes.
Yes.
Word
Gives
teeth.
it to Rowan.
He pretty much trades the
gives
amulet.
it to Lorcan. Yeah.
Amulet that's supposed to have the key in it too. And there's like a note of it feeling wrong and like
Yep.
it's thrumming with power. And so, of course, I'm like, motherfucker.
He does
Rowan,
also get Lorcan to swear a blood vow. I think that's what it is that like really sells me on it when it happens, is the fact that he gets Lorcan to swear the blood vow that he's actually going to do it. Like, he gets him to cut himself and say, like, I am doing this to destroy the word keys, so that Rowan's completely sure that that's what he's doing before he gives it over to him.
Yeah, he and also then, like, says that the ring will protect
and that the ring will protect, like, that it's not that's not a trick as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rowan, like, goes back inside, and Aelin's sitting up in bed, and she's like, he fell for it, right? And Rowan's like, yeah, we're good. They had, like, put the fucking ring from one of the, like, Vogue black commanders.
Ring. So from when she cut off the finger of the Vogue prince that she brought to Erwin, they put that ring inside a fake necklace that looked like it. They had Lysandra's jeweler make another necklace. This man is gonna make a lot of money this year just from her.
So much money.
So it still felt wrong because there's this black onyx wordstone ring inside of it. Give that to Lorcan. And so he believes it's something because it has some kind of thrumming of power. And they take the good gold ring that's going to protect her. I wrote, Aelin was awake when he entered in the bedroom. Oh my fucking God, they gave him a fake. Because I was like, God damn it. He's sneaking around now. But he's going to do my brain was like, don't pull another fucking Chaol. I don't need all of the men in this book to be fucking idiots. I need one to be okay. I need one to make good decisions.
I remember you messaging me or like saying something to me at one point when you weren't finished yet. You were like, please no, I don't need any more Chaol. His night-keen eyes allowed him to see the scarred palm she held out as she dropped the ring into it. She slid it onto her thumb, wriggled her fingers, and frowned when nothing particularly exciting happened. A laugh caught in his throat. How mad is Lorcan going to be? Aelin murmured as they laid down face to face when he eventually opens up that amulet and finds the Vogue commander's ring inside and realizes we gave him a fake.
He's gonna be really mad.
He's gonna be a little pissed. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't fully trust him right now.
We get a little snippet of back to
Dorian again.
Dorian. And this is like where I'm finding these passages so fascinating in the way that the way that the demon is choosing what to torture him with, because he's again, like, the demon is trying to get him to think of things that aren't going to bring him back to his own reality. Like, keep him as blank as possible. So he, like, can't get Manon's name out of his head and, like, keeps thinking about Manon. And the demon is like, don't think of that one. Do not think of her. Enough. We do not speak of them. Descendants of our kings. And then Dorian says, speak of whom? And the demon says, good. No! Think more about Manon!
Stop it. Think about her.
Aelin meets with Chaol before they go into the castle tomorrow. Because tomorrow is the big day. They're going to go into the castle. She tells him, you know I won't endanger any lives. And Chaol says, I know, I trust you. Fucking took you long enough. God damn it.
Thing that got me here was that they are having their heart-to-heart of, like, are you ready? Chaol finally starts to say that, like, he's the reason that she went to Wenlin. He's the reason that Dorian has this thing on his neck. Like, there's so many things because Dorian did it to save Chaol. Like, he stayed back to buy time for Chaol to run. So he just has all these things. She pushes back and is like, he says to her, like, you deserve happiness. Like, you deserve to be happy. And she's like, so do you, Chaol. And then he, of course, pushes back and says, like, you know, she and I haven't, referring to Nezrin. And she's like, I know you haven't, but maybe you should. Because Nezrin's great. She's the good person. You deserve each other. But then Aelin said, I promise I'll make it quick and painless for Dorian. His breathing locked up. Thank you. But if I ask, he couldn't say it. Then the blow is yours. Just say the word. We do not look back, Chaol. It helps no one and nothing to look back. We can only go on. What if we go on, he said, only to more pain and despair? What if we go on only to find a horrible end waiting for us? Aelin looked northward. Then it is not the end.
It's kind of depressing.
It's really sad.
Well, if you come up with a horrible and painful end, then it's not the end. Don't worry. There could be more horrible, painful things. It's not done until we get a happy ending at some point after all of this pain. Oh, God.
They do talk about the rebels that are remaining. Chaol mentions that there are only 20 left. There were a couple hundred. People have been captured and died. People have escaped. And anyone that they had captured, and then Chaol and Nezrin and, like, the rebels had gotten out, they, like, shipped them off to other places so that they would be safer. Any of the rebels that had any type of, like, magic background, they pretty much told them, like, get the fuck out of Rifthold because they're targeting you specifically, which is very true. They talk a bit about kind of the rest of their plan. Chaol and Nezrin are kind of going over everything, and Chaol mentions, like, missing Dorian and regretting not savoring the times that, like, they'd go out to, like, different pubs and, like, celebrate, and he was always, like, trying to be stoic and do the right thing and not celebrate. Him and Nezrin go into, like, they're in this temple, and Chaol mentions, maybe once everything is over, we could figure that out together. Promise me, she breathed, her mouth shaking. Promise me, she repeated, that you will walk out of that castle tomorrow. He wondered why she brought him here, the sea god and the god of oaths. He squeezed her hand, she squeezed back. Gold light rippled on the surface of the sea, God's fountain, and Chaol offered up a silent prayer. I promise. So he made, like, an oath to her that he would come out of the castle alive.
They're all going to sleep now. They're, like, prepared for tomorrow. Rowan's, like, running through everything in his head while, like, they're both getting ready for bed. And he, like, gets in bed, goes over the plan in his head, and he goes, I've been thinking, Rowan started, and then forgot everything he was going to say as he bolted upright in bed. Aelin leaned against the closet doorway, clad in a nightgown of gold, metallic gold, as he requested. It could have been painted on her for how closely it hugged every curve and dip for all that it concealed. A living flame. That's what she looked like. He didn't know where to look, where he wanted to touch first. If I recall correctly, she drawled, someone said to remind him, to prove me wrong about my hesitations. I think I had two options. Words or tongue and teeth. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Did I now? He gives her a look like he wants to rip it off of her, and she goes, don't even think about it. Lysandra lent this to me. You cannot destroy it. Oh, it's so good.
His heartbeat thundered in his ears. If he moved an inch, he'd be on her, would take her in his arms and begin learning just what made the air of fire really burn.
She's, like, absolutely just teasing him and flirting with him. And he says, Aelin, you deserve better than this, than me. He wanted to say it for a while now. She didn't so much as flinch. Don't tell me what I do and don't deserve. Don't tell me about tomorrow or the future or any of it. Tell me that we'll get through tomorrow. Tell me that we'll survive the war. Tell me... She swallowed hard. Tell me that even if I lead us all to ruin, we'll all burn in hell together. We're not going to hell, Aelin, he said. But wherever we go, we'll go together. Her mouth wobbled slightly, and she released his hand only to brace her own on his chest. Just once, she said. I want to kiss you just once. Every thought went out of his head. That sounds like you're expecting not to do it again. The flicker of fear in her eyes told him enough, told him that her behavior at dinner might have been mostly bravado to keep Aedion calm. I know the odds. You and I have always relished damning the odds. Even when we're apart tomorrow, I'll be with you every step of the way, and every step after, wherever that may be. She sucked in a shuddering breath, and he pulled back far enough for them to share a breath. Her fingers shook as she brushed them against his mouth, and then his control nearly shredded apart right there. What are you waiting for? He said, the words near guttural. Bastard, she murmured, and kissed him. He said again. He breathed. She slid out of her grip. If we get through tomorrow, you'll get the rest. He didn't know whether to laugh or roar. Are you trying to bribe me into surviving? She smiled at last, and damn if it didn't kill him, the quiet joy in her face. You make me want to live, Rowan. Not survive, not exist, live. He didn't have the words, not when what she had said hit him harder and deeper than any kiss, so he climbed into bed and held her tightly all through the night. And that's where we're going to end for this episode.
It's such a sweet little ending, and it's
good
right
one.
before.
What,
Shit
is
hits
this
the
the last
fan.
100 pages? Is it officially? Let's see.
We're at 528.
648.
So
120
almost.
pages.
We got 120 pages remaining.
So yeah,
And
next episode will be chapter 66 through... I don't actually know how many chapters are in this book. 89.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
And that will be the final installment
episode
of Queen of Shadows.
So good. That might be my favorite. Rereading it, it's just so well
so
written.
good.
It's fantastic.
It's so good. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us and checking out our podcast. We hope you enjoyed your time here. You can find us at the Smut Peddlers on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for additional content. And we'll see you guys next time.